Middle cough.
Hey, hey.
Week 1 of the NFL season, Sunday night. And here we are. It finally happened. It finally
We made
came.
it, guy.
We did make it.
We actually pulled it off and made it here.
Think of all the times we said, like, it's here. This is preseason. The OTAs, football is here. And then it was like, week 1 of the preseason, football is here. It was Thursday night football. It's like, football is here. It's never really here until you get that first Sunday.
Very true. Yeah, I had butterflies this morning. I had some butterflies this morning. Once Scott Hansen, they actually did a pretty cool, like 5 minutes before the game, that 9/11 anthem rendition they did on all the channels. Mm-hmm. It was pretty powerful. Right into the game. It was cool.
Butterflies about the lock of the week. Is that what was making you a little
No, just butterflies. Just we spent a lot of time talking about this and building up to it. It's just finally fucking here. It's like, okay, live up. I hype you up. National Football League.
Oh, National Football League.
I mean, I
thought maybe you were talking about somebody in particular.
No, it's like sometimes you wonder, like, why am I defending this thing that they don't need me to defend or you or anyone? It's like, this is the NFL. It should be fun. And it was a good, solid. I'd give today like a 7 out of 10. Chiefs, Browns, probably the best action I saw.
I got to tell you, John, I was a little out of phase and out of practice. If we were breaking down the film, be like, Haber, you're out of phase right there, whatever that means. I was a little out of phase in the afternoon. I don't feel like I fully appreciated Chiefs, Browns as it was happening. I'm not exactly sure. It's just me. I was a little rusty. I was like Jamar Chase in practice, not game Jamar Chase, who caught a sweet touchdown today.
Yeah, he did.
But
him and Sewell, you got to give, those guys got shit on for the last month. Sewell, for the most part, handled 97 pretty well, and Jamar Chase had a touchdown.
He went back to left tackle.
I think both those guys were like, hey, guys, can we just calm down? We're blue chippers. I feel good for them.
Let's play some
both
games.
Took a lot of heat. Jamar Chase, like, quoted Florio last week, making fun of him with the white lines on the balls.
Well, he did say it.
I think he took him out of context, though.
Okay.
Is there more white on a college ball than the NFL ball?
The NFL ball does not have the white line. The college ball has like the two.
Oh yeah. I see what he's saying. Honestly,
yeah.
I didn't really even focus or think that deep into what he said, but I guess that makes sense. So he's saying that he couldn't see the spinning motion probably as well or whatever.
Right.
Makes sense.
Right. Maybe he's, I don't know, colorblind. All due respect to the colorblind. I don't know if that was some factor, but it was the game. This is all, in all seriousness. I mean, not really seriousness. We're just doing this. The whole thing is based on the games. Like there's a lot of time that we spend talking about things that are not the games. But at the end of the day, eventually, games have to be played for all that stuff to work and for all that stuff to matter and for all that stuff to be fun. For whatever reason, it's fun for you. You might be watching some players. You might be loving a team. It might be about your fantasy. It might be about gambling. Whatever it is, it's all centered on the games. The games. I've been saying it for years. It's the games are the centerpiece of the whole thing. And today we got
there is less hype. I think you feel it a little more in college football, like because there's so much hype on new coaches. In the NFL, I think most people thought the Lions are going to suck, right? Or the Bengals and Vikings aren't quite as good as they are. Now, you still play, you learn stuff, definitely about individual players. I do feel there's a little less hype in the offseason, and it's just more realistic, like you either are or you aren't what you are as an NFL team. There might be, obviously there's always a worst to first. I feel like in college, they anoint in the offseason, like Steve Sarkisian and Texas fucking 11 wins. And it's like they get beat. Most part in the NFL, I guess maybe it happens. Sirianni with the Eagles, probably a lot of people think he was going to suck, and then he came out and won his first game like 39-5 or something.
Right.
So, pretty good. I saw he said Howard Eskin asked him, like, what was it like? He's like, honestly, before I went and gathered the team, I just took a moment outside the locker room by myself and realized, like, that was pretty cool. I just had to take a deep breath. That was pretty cool. Realize Peter Schrager, I think tweeted last night or early this morning, felt like it was Robert Saleh, but he's like, just got off the phone with a first-time head coach. He's like, I got the jitters. I got the butterflies. It's midnight Saturday, and I'm still game planning. It's like, yeah, it sounds like the bald guy in New York. But
Could have been
his
Sirianni.
point kind of is like it's a cool moment for like Saleh and Sirianni. Like shit happened pretty fast for those guys.
Cool moment for Arthur Smith till it wasn't 32-6. This show is sponsored by. You guys have done a great job again this weekend, sending us photos of you doing whatever it is you do on the weekend with our sponsor, Tito's Handmade Vodka.
Do you know what I found out? You know what I found out this morning, guy?
What?
We have a decent amount of Sunday drinkers.
Yeah.
And a lot of them Tito's. They were going with Bloody Marys. I saw some people going with the kickoff special,
kickoff,
a little
Tito's
OJ,
kickoff.
a little soda, obviously a transfusion, probably after lunch. But, Tito's vodka, the number one vodka in America, made by our friend, even though we've never officially met, Tito Beverage, who started this just,
Or unofficially.
out of nothing.
Yep.
No big deal. Just an independent guy just trying to make it, and then he just developed the number one vodka in America. He's basically living the American dream. And we're glad to have him on board, guy. We really are.
He's like a very well balanced offense, right? Because it's built on the very high quality product. He's done it himself from the beginning. So it's like the player that you drafted, that's him. He never, he didn't jump around to 3 different teams. He got his start in philanthropy. Like the company does so much of it, and it started. He was pouring drinks. That's how he started getting people to try his vodka. Pouring drinks at fundraisers. He would come and try, get people turned on to the Tito's. Then he does the thing where they're like, you got to come out and send your stuff to California. He's like, I can't make it. Just take it. Just take it. And he wins double gold. Then like these people from somebody called Trader Joe wants your vodka. He's like, never heard of them. They're like, you should do it. So he does it. Blows up. Now it's everywhere. It's ordered by everybody. If you're not ordering it, you should be. Tito's Handmade Vodka, John. We're big fans. We've always been big fans. You didn't need us.
We are.
They didn't need to get on the podcast for us to be the ones ordering Tito's. So hopefully you are too.
American made, obviously distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof. Crafted to be savored responsibly.
And keep going and going and going and going and sending us the pictures of the Tito's.
Keep
that you're
savoring it
making.
responsibly. Every day, send us pics.
Every day, send us pic. DM us on Instagram, Twitter, tag us, whatever you want to do there. Podcast also brought to you by MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. They'll match that deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,000. You can, if you accept the bonus, you have to bet the full amount before you can withdraw funds. You can also decline the bonus, but either way, use HAM1. Let them know we sent you. There is Monday Night Football. If you're listening, if you're watching this live, you probably could get in on, maybe you could get in on Sunday Night Football. It's about to kick off. But Monday Night Football, John, Raiders, Ravens, or at least what's left of the Ravens. What do we got on that right now? John, tell me right now, what do we got on that?
We got the Ravens -4 guy, and we got an over-under 50.5. Did you notice week 1? A lot of underdogs didn't just come to play and cover. They won. Eagles won. The Chargers, by the end of that, was football team -1. The Texans, what were they? I know when we were talking about it, they were +3 at home.
That's right.
Won. These are outright winners. Pittsburgh, underdog, won. I mean, the Dolphins were an underdog on the road to the Patriots, won. Like, we're getting a lot of underdogs winning, and we've seen it for years. Week 1 can get a little weird. My logic was simple. For months, every human's going to bet on the Ravens. When it was like 5.5, and clearly it's gone down a little bit. I think just the turmoil that they had, I'm sure the last 2 or 3 days just got some people to jump on the other side. I just have always felt the Raiders are the bet in this, just because I think the money all season long, when I say season, I mean gambling season, the schedule up until this week has poured in on the Ravens.
I actually like it too. I hate to agree on this because, then it's hard to make a counter argument and keep each other balanced, but I agree with you on this. Just because it feels so obvious, and this weekend has been about avoid the obvious. Now, to update every week what we're doing, every week until we run out of cash, we're putting $300 on our lock of the week.
Yep, we did that Niners -8.
And we did, what do we do, 100 on our dud of the week?
We did 100 on the dud of the week, and that went dud.
And that went dud. That game was the Jags-Texans. We both agreed we kind of liked we liked the Texans +3, but we didn't really trust anybody, so we took the under. And that game was like 14-7.
Fast.
Midway through the first quarter, it was like, oh, this is a problem. So we lost on that bet. We'll have to find another dud. We'll do that in the middle of the week. We'll identify the dud. Our lock of the week, what I was texting people, Jeff Schwartz, like, bro, your rules about 7.5-point favorites on the road, shut up. This was so easy. Niners against Goff, it's a gimme. It wasn't a bad beat, but it was a bad not win. It's a bad push. That was 8.
Yeah,
we got him at 8, and it was 8.
It's damn close to a bad beat, guy, because it took an onside kick off fucking George Kittle.
George Kittle's
then
face.
Then just the 2-pointer to ultimately push was, I mean, we're talking not inches, millimeters. I don't even know the difference between inches and millimeters. I just know millimeters are smaller.
Good move.
But it was very, very close. You immediately called me, and then they showed the replay, and you could see the BBs and the pebbles, and it was obvious, and it sucked. But it's a push is way better than a loss. I will say that.
Yes.
You'd much rather have a win, but a push is, you're not happy, but you're definitely not too angry.
By the time we got to the push, it felt like a win. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
There
MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1.
Once Deebo Samuel fumbled, it was like a push would feel like a win at this point. So
It was by far today the weirdest, 6 or 7 minute stretch. It was, I saw someone tweet, it was 41-16 with 6 minutes left to go. It got weird fast. Like very, very weird at rapid speed. And you're watching it going, this is weird. But then you just start doing a numbers game. You're like, well, if they score here and then another onside kick, you're like, they could tie the game,
Yeah. It was 41-17 with 2 minutes left. And then they scored to make it 41-25. 41-17 with 2 minutes left.
So then they get an onside kick, and then they score the next touchdown with the 2-point conversion and make it a 1-score game. So if you watch the game, you don't go, God, this must have been a tight. The Lions, it took a little luck. Like you said, a fumble. The fumble was 41. When you said 41-17.
So 41-25 when he fumbled. No, 41-33.
No, when Deebo Samuel fumbled?
It was 41-33.
Oh, yeah. What I'm thinking of is I saw on Twitter was 6 minutes left when it was 41-17. Jimmy has Deebo open across the middle, which, would have just leaked a lot more time, and throws it behind him. And then it just kind of snowballed fast. Then they just kind of ran up some points, and the way it got weird. But it could have just ended with the score looking dramatically different.
Yeah.
It's one of those where, like, you have games that are really, really close that you end up winning, like the Chiefs, right? And that's one where it's like, God damn, this thing was close. The score looks close. We easily could have lost. That is not the case in this game. But I was watching I accidentally hit on, like, YouTube. Deebo must have been talking.
Yeah.
And Kyle said after the game where he's like, how many guys in here are happy with that win? And the place was, you could hear a pin drop, which good sign.
Yeah, it is. And maybe it helps things. Maybe it locks you in a little bit more because next week will be more of a challenge for them. From every rain cloud, John, comes a rainbow. And I do wonder, we haven't decided yet what we're going to do this week. I do wonder, though, if we've just identified our Jaguars as the team early on. They're going to play the Broncos in week 2. If we've just found our mark, so to speak, when it comes to the lock of the week. Now, I don't know, because, they're the teams they play are not necessarily the most trustworthy teams, too, given that they're not playing the best teams in the league from last year necessarily. So we'll have to look around and figure out what next week looks like. But
is that game in that Dove Valley or Valley Ranch or wherever all the rich people live and the stadium is up there? I would imagine that game's in Denver, right? So that might be
no, the game's in Jacksonville.
Tough start for Denver on the road, New York, and then Jacksonville, a little East Coast trip.
Yeah,
I still like Denver. Yeah, I'm with you.
So we'll have to see what
I
that
could circle
number
that
is.
one.
We'll have to see what
I
that
might
number
like them
is,
up to like 6 or 7 points.
If we could get a prop on Urban Meyer's, I don't know. I don't know if Urban's going to make it all year long, John. Or
do you know what's funny is I do think this game was pretty easy to just, for the most part, like I don't think anyone was. Never crossed my mind they would lose. You're really just watching the Lions kind of making fun of them more, especially once it was like 31-10 at half. I'm sorry, that's a joke game. Any team that's down 31-10 at half on the road, like if this was any normal game where you didn't view like you were playing some cellar dweller, like if the Niners were playing at Arizona or whoever, and the score, whoever is up 31-10, the road team, you'd be like, oh my God, they're kicking the shit out of them. So that's how the way I just kind of viewed it. So I just started thinking about Lion stuff. Like, Dan Campbell really is as big as everyone made him. Like, he looks enormous on the sideline. Even for football coaches, he was the biggest football coach I saw all weekend long, I think by a pretty wide margin. I guess I didn't see that much of Vrabel. Well, I don't necessarily mean like, there are a lot of fat coaches. I'm talking just the girth and size of a guy that if you just showed him, like, could that guy give you snaps right now? And you'd be like, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Looks like he could.
I mean, was a outlier probably as an among NFL tight ends. He's probably a physical outlier, right?
Like the Niners, their
6'5",
sideline doesn't
265.
really, they don't really have that look. Yeah. I mean, like Darryl Tapp and D'Amico are both like 6'1", I mean, their size, and then obviously the Welkers and the McDaniel. Kyle's just a skinny white guy. They did the graphic during the game, right? The Lions lead the league in former players. They had like 10
Goose,
former
Aaron
players.
Glenn.
Yeah. They had a bunch of guys.
Don't forget, everybody, get in the mailbag. You go to iTunes. You leave us a review. You leave a question. You tell us your favorite bar. That's how you get in the Haberman and Middlecoff mailbag. iTunes. Review. 5 stars. Tell us your favorite bar. Not required to, but we'd love if you do. And it's a good way to connect the community, John, this community we have. And leave us a question. That's
We're all part of the same community, guy.
That's right. All part of Earth. And also, if you're watching the video, subscribe to the channel. Like the video. If you're listening to the podcast, check out the YouTube. If you're watching the YouTube, there is a podcast down in the description below.
Do it. Get in it.
Anything else we need to add to the Niner game? We did a video immediately after that game about how just everything kind of we just said, that the final score was not what we took away. I think there were things that happened in that game that mattered. Their run defense early in the game, you start scoring points, the Lions can't really run anymore, or at least it doesn't matter if they do. And, that's going to be the recipe, I think, early on for this team. We'll get to some of their injuries and stuff, but the score didn't bother me. There were, as we'll talk about here, several things that came out of that game that you just kind of put you, I don't want to say on alert, but yeah, on alert. You're on alert for a few things here.
Yeah, just know this. When you run the wide 9 defense, who I was famously a part of with the Eagles when we hired Jim Washburn, who is the mentor.
It was Middlecoff on the right and Jason Babin on the left.
His apprentice was Chris Kasarik, their crazy defensive line coach, who he taught when he went to Detroit. And it has its positives. It is a fantastic pass rushing defense. And you can make random defensive tackles good pass rushers like the Niners do with Street, and they will when Hurst comes back. And you can make really good defensive ends like Bosa and D Ford dominate. But in the run game, when you're playing with a couple D tackles that are both – now, the Kinlaw thing, which I'm sure we'll get into later, you need a guy like that. Like even in the wide 9 one gap, it's much easier to stop the run when you have Ndamukong Suh, Fletcher Cox, or Kinlaw, or Buckner, right? But when you have these little guys, even if you have a good, fast linebacking core with an elite middle linebacker, you can still get fucking gashed. And they were getting gashed because their line, they just go right up the field, the D tackles, right? Because they were. It wasn't outside runs; it was up the gut, and they're small, and they're just all they're thinking about is just get up the field. Well, what if I was an offensive coach? You're just getting up the field. I'm just trapping you or just hitting quick runs right inside you. And that's what it felt like, because they weren't even getting touch guide till they were where the linebackers stand, the running backs.
Yeah.
And sometimes they weren't, they were still running right by. It was
right. Well, those are the guys that have to make that play. And, the running back's coming downhill at them. So it was.
Yeah, which is part of the scheme. But when you have the little defensive, when Kinlaw's not in there, they are easily to expose in the middle of the defense.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying it is incumbent on your linebackers to be able to make those tackles.
But there is something to be said about your defensive tackles. Like, this is my pushback with the wide 9. Like, hey, guys, if it's 1st and 10 and, it's the third quarter and you're like, yeah, they basically ran on 8 of the 9 first downs. Let's take one step up and then hold out. Like, we don't have to fucking chase Goff every single play. And that is, I love Jim Washburn. I don't know this guy at all, but I know their mindset. They don't they fundamentally disagree with that assessment.
Got to get to the quarterback.
There's no Yeah, honestly, it takes that goal line or 4th and 1 for anything to change. It's get upfield.
I
But
mean,
aside
wide
getting
nine,
the quarterback, it's penetrate.
it's
It's
in the
not just
name.
penetrate.
It's in the name of the wide. Like if you're an offense and you're like, what do these guys do? Like wide nine. It's like wide, like big, like this. Okay. Even if you don't know anything, it kind of piques your interest. Like maybe we could run the football.
But here's another just part of the value of the wide nine is you can take defensive tackles that for a lot of schemes they would never fuck with them. Like Vic Fangio's defenses, he doesn't mess with like a little tiny defensive lineman just because he's fast. Those guys go, well, I can get 7 sacks out of this guy, and they're not wrong. Like they can turn these little defensive tackles into kind of little penetrators, but they can also get blocked in the run game till the cows come home.
Well, again, we can talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, he had a good game, and the key for the Niners, I think, after 1 week, if we're making proclamations about them, one is going to be playing from ahead. Now, we've already, I think, established that with Jimmy's skill set. It's not a great skill set. If you're going to be a team that wants to run the football, then obviously playing from ahead. Everybody wants to play from ahead. But for them, negating the run game a little bit, and then you can take advantage of a defense that's emphasizing pass rushing, is going to be a big deal because, as we saw early when that game was in the balance, even Goff actually I thought looked better than he usually does against the 49ers on Sunday. But this isn't about him. It's about Jimmy. But I just,
average guy, he completed 38 balls, Jared Goff,
Yeah.
and was not over 6 yards of completion.
Yeah. He missed a few throws that actually were beneficial, like some throws that a better quarterback makes the defense pay on. I just thought he looked less frenetic than he usually looks against them.
I agree. I would agree there.
Jimmy's, the fumble on the opening snap. And I thought
center already sweating at his ass.
Maybe. I thought he looked pretty comfortable. Given everything that we've talked about over the last year with him, I thought he looked pretty comfortable.
Yeah, I just think Jimmy Garoppolo in a vacuum was his most calm game he's played since 2019. Last year, I never thought at any moment he looked as comfortable as he did today. Now,
especially not at the beginning of seasons.
I think you do have to preface this with they were playing arguably a bottom 2 or 3 team. Like that is part of the conversation here a little bit when you're talking about just Jimmy and the quarterbacks. Obviously traded in play, but just Jimmy was good, but he wasn't really pressured that often. And when he was a couple times, and he's got a cool little like kind of up and under, and then he kind of still looks to lob it. It's like kind of Jimmy's go-to wow play, I would say. But the Lions, the only defender you can probably name, like most people, would be Okudah, who's getting screamed at left and right. Their defense is not.
Michael Brockers.
They don't have much. Yeah, but he's at this point in time a little older, and, kind of a fill-in.
Name somebody.
But my point is, like, they're just not. You don't have to worry about getting pressure, and that is an area sometimes I think with Jimmy Garoppolo, which I think we're going to feel more this week, and we'll get way more into the Eagles game, but like they have a much better defensive line. So like to me, where Jimmy gets out of sorts, right, is like you hit him a little bit, like any quarterback, but it's like then he kind of starts, I don't know, you can get him off. Like to me, the way to mess with Tom is like truly get him off the spot. But that doesn't mean get him off the spot, not because he'll freak, because like he's not athletic, so he can't step into throws. To me, Jimmy, you just want to kind of fucking hit him a little bit and then just kind of rattle him. The same knock on Derek. Once you get him, like you can't Mahomes, like what hit him, like he doesn't give a fuck. Same with like certain
harder
quarterback
to hit too, right?
Harder to hit, but it's also like harder
less
to really kind of, I would say, derail their confidence. Like Jimmy today kind of felt, even after the fumble, like they just kind of had their mojo. It's like, oh, he's feeling it. And when Jimmy's a feel it guy, he can look like a top, 12, 13 quarterback in the league. Like once he gets momentum on his side.
It's hard to keep rhythm for 4 quarters of a game, right? You're going to have to make some plays that are a little quote unquote off schedule, however we want to say it, right? Because his rhythm looks really good. It's just hard. A football game is long. 4 quarters is a long time to have to win. We saw it with them today. We saw it repeatedly over the weekend in college football.
You notice it in college football.
It's like, if this game was 3.5 quarters, it would be over.
But there's a much different rhythm. I text you on Saturday. I'm like, It is not unfair, but their game is completely different with the stopping of the clock at the first down, like
Yeah.
late in games when you're out of tight ends.
Yeah.
But they do feel college games feel longer. But like I felt it today. I'm like, God damn, this preseason guys just come out and you're like, oh, the game felt like 35 minutes. These games do feel 3 hours.
Yeah.
I think the Browns Chiefs game is a good example. Like it was over, then it's not over. And we talked a lot about this last year, over the last couple of years. Now it didn't impact this game. You got to be careful with like a team when they score in that first drive. You're like, oh fuck, it's just easy pickings. But that because usually
Sometimes
that
it's
first
a bad
drive,
omen.
even for the worst team in the league, like what the offensive coordinator, they script the plays, things do play out. And that's why for the Niners, like in that first half, you're like, Jimmy Garoppolo's in complete control. Debo's dominating. Elijah Mitchell looked like he's a top 50 pick, not their 6th round pick. And you're just like, they're kicking their ass.
Elijah
But
Mitchell
offensively,
offensively, yeah, he looked. But that's the offense is what we've been talking about for a long time, and it's only week 1, but are there things on defense that are bigger questions than Jimmy Garoppolo? Right now, the answer to that is yes. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, here's what we also know: over the course of a full season, historically, there are games that Garoppolo has where he does not look as good as he looked on Sunday, and there are opportunities to replace him. He didn't really give the Niners any opportunities to replace him today. They got Trey Lance into the game, which we'll talk about. But he played the kind of game, like, does that Jimmy Garoppolo keep his job for a while? The answer is yes. If as the opponent's level rises, if his level still stays at what it was today, the answer to that's yes.
Well, one thing you noticed today that you just kind of forgot, mainly, I know I did. It's been so long since 2019. Both these guys were hurt last year. It's like, I know Jimmy and George have a good connection, right? But you forget, like, when Deebo Samuel's healthy, that guy's a motherfucker. And Jimmy and him have a connection. Like, Jimmy feels very, very comfortable throwing in the ball. And we can argue, and it's been hard to, like, some of the other guys in his class, right? DK and AJ, they played more. They just, it was easy to kind of, have definitive takes on them where like you could argue one way or the other on Debo and it was hard to be right or wrong. Where it's like, yeah, Debo, when he's healthy, is a fucking baller, right? Is he AJ Brown, DK Metcalf? I don't know. But he's closer to them than like the middle class, right? Like this guy at any moment in a playoff game in week 1 against a bad team, it don't matter, can give you 8, 9, 10 for $150, a touchdown or 2, right? He can take over. And we were talking about it last year. Was like, you got to figure out ways to just, you don't always want to run them. It's how we get banged up. Today they just kind of, I felt like Jimmy just treated him like, you're my number one. Let's go kick ass and take names.
Yeah. 9 catches for 189 and a touchdown, John. That is.
Didn't it feel like it felt like when 10 was dropping back, it's like, where's 19?
Absolutely.
And there were some plays clearly they scripted for him, right? On a couple, like on that one across the middle, they're like the play was set up. But there was that other one where he threw up. It was like, I trust my dude.
Yeah, yeah. And he came back to the ball and made the play and actually showed some speed too, which I shouldn't be surprised by it. But you're right, he hasn't had.
But
I
forget like what he plays like.
He hasn't had
he
2 years of just him and 2 years with his quarterback, and it's just the two of them, and they just stack up 9 catch games week after week after week. You're right.
I just feel like if you gave any Niner fan, like, give me the scattering report on George Kittle, I would say like 99% of the fans could give like a pretty damn good scattering report. If you just got 10 people, including in the NFL, and like diehard fans, I think the takes on Debo would be all over the map.
Well, they'd start with, when he's healthy, that's how they'd start.
Yeah. When he is, like, he has I get you're playing a team. Let's be real. They might win 2 games. Maybe they could win 4 or 5. I don't know. But it's probably more likely to be 2 or 3 than 5 or 6. But you go 9 for 190. Like, that's no joke, right? That's a real game.
That's a stud game. That's a major.
Because to me, you do like minus the inflation against a shitty team and just put that against a good team. That's 9 for 90, right?
Yeah, it's whatever. I threw the ball at you 12 times. You caught it 9 times. You scored a touchdown. One of them went for 79 yards. It's just production. It's just whatever production is, you know it when you see it, right? If I said, tell me what production is, you're not going to give me 9 for 189. Just be like, I don't know. I'll know when I see production is production. That's fucking A1 production right there.
31 points, DraftKings.
That's what Alex said. Did
I
you have
felt
him?
bad when I saw, yeah, when I saw the corner tumbling, just because earlier in the game when they showed the DB coach screaming at him, I'm like, I don't hope that's not Okuda. Like, I feel kind of bad. But then he comes to sideline and the DB coach like kind of loves him up. I'm like, coaching's weird, man. You scream at him when nothing really happens, and then you love him up when he gets his like embarrassed on national TV.
Yep.
It's a hard balance.
Yeah. The problem is when you screaming at him is embarrassing him on national TV. You know. But by that point in time, maybe it wasn't quite on national TV. All right, so what's the evaluation on Trey Lance? One throw was a touchdown to his guy, Trent Sherfield. 3 carries for 2 yards with a long of 2 yards. So not very effective in the run game. I do think there are, as good as well as Jimmy played, there are some things just kind of simmering around the perimeter on this team right now in terms of what's their defense going to look like. Are they going to have Ayuk, and are they going to have their full complement of running backs? And there's enough around them that you start to wonder, like, imperfect teams, everybody's imperfect in some way, shape, or form. And the reason you want a top 5 quarterback is because the quarterback has the ball on offense in his hands on every play. And so he has the best ability to overcome whatever your team's shortcomings are. That person can erase some of those things. And so you already see some of the things with this team after 1 week that are going to have to be overcome, whether it's Ayuk's situation, whether it's Mostert's injury, whether it's Sermon, whatever's going on in the secondary with injuries, defensively against the run game. I don't know. Week 1 is always, you can jump to too many conclusions. But you can just kind of see where it could get to a point where you need a quarterback who could be more explosive than Garoppolo. But they didn't need that against the Lions. But we still got a little bit of Trey Lance. What'd you think?
Well, the snap count in the first half, when there was like a real game and there was an ebb and flow Jimmy, out of 25 snaps, Trey played 2. Now, part of that, we talked all week long, where it's question mark, would he be ready? Would he, how would they even, would they bring Sudfeld up? And he didn't. Like, he was ready to play, clearly. But did this derail their plans, or was it simply like the last couple of weeks just derailed his play, where he wasn't as good as he had been, remember, earlier in camp?
Yeah.
So maybe we're just at the point where he's going to play preseason game. Could he play 30% of the snaps? That's how it kind of felt like it could play out. Like, one guy gets 15 snaps, the other guy gets 25. It doesn't feel like that's the way it's going to play out early on. Now, like you said earlier, part of that, Jimmy can just control that a little bit. Jimmy's rolling. The offense is playing well. They don't need to. They don't need a quote-unquote spark. But I also think the balance of bringing him in like he's I don't know if he's really going to run like what's his name with the Saints, Taysom, who's a little more explosive as a runner. He was a 4.4 guy at BYU. When you do direct stuff with Kyler or Lamar, those guys are dramatically faster than him. Now, it might have just been first NFL game. I'm sure he had a ton of family there. Did look a little slow on the one, quarterback up the middle. Maybe that's just hesitation, but it did not, from a scouting eye, there was a quick twitch there. If he's a 4.6 guy, it felt like he was moving more like 4.9 or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the first part as it relates to, he didn't get into space at all, right? Which is where you see speed the most. Now, you're just talking about burst and how hard you're hitting a hole.
I'm just talking about hitting the hole.
No, I understand. I understand.
He was hesitant.
But I also think there's probably a lot going on in terms of, does he give? Maybe there's a throw option in some of these plays. I don't know. But there's at least a give option. He's reading somebody. It's not just take the ball and run with it, right? Not that you can't call that for him.
Yeah.
Well,
it could just be a guaranteed keeper.
It could have been. Yeah.
They would never admit to that, but it felt like that just by the way he went. But you're right. But then if you factor in, he did look hesitant. Maybe he not scared, but you're just like, wow, there's a lot going on. Your first NFL play. He had said after the game Kyle didn't tell him. Again, they could be lying, but
Kyle claimed he didn't even plan to put him in the game early, and it just happened.
For the touchdown?
Yeah, the touchdown. But a couple things. One, if you're going to start Jimmy Garoppolo, then you do him a disservice if you're not giving him the amount of snaps that a quarterback needs to just have a good feel for the game, what the defense is doing, what the defense. Like one thing, there's a difference between having a starting quarterback and mixing another guy in, and going with a 2-quarterback system where you're alternating possessions. And now all of a sudden, your starting quarterback comes in on the third drive to start the second quarter. Didn't see anything the defense did on the second drive after they adjusted to what you guys did on the first drive, right? And you're only getting half of the picture of the defense. And so you are, if you want Garoppolo to be the starter because you don't think Trey Lance is ready yet, you are doing Garoppolo a disservice if you're like alternating possessions with Trey Lance, because now he's not. He gets to the second half and he's only seen half of whatever it is the defense did in the first half.
But Trey, you like the backup who's just going to mix in, and Jimmy was the starter today, not a 2-quarterback system. Right.
And so, and that's where it gets harder, because on the other side of that coin, my take, I've said it many times, and I think you agreed after that preseason game the first preseason game in which he played, was he needs to play more. Like, he needs game speed. He needs to play more. So this is going to be a tough balance. And I think one thing we saw today, maybe the finger was a part of it. It's hard to know if he had been fully healthy, had not missed any practice. Would this have been what it was going to look like today? It's hard to know if they had played an opponent different than Detroit. Would this be how it would have gone today? But it does feel,
Kyle said he was going to give him like the garbage time, but then the game kind of flipped and he couldn't, you know. There wasn't any garbage time.
Well, and I think Kyle got spooked by the injuries, understandably. I mean, he basically said after the game, like, he got spooked, and because he started trying to play safe to protect guys. But just based on what we saw today, it feels like as long as Jimmy's solid, Kyle's going to err on the side of not forcing Trey Lance in there more than he needs to preserve at least what is, after 1 week, a good performance by Garoppolo. Now, that can change quickly.
To me, it's going to be hard to gauge until we see Jimmy play against better teams to go, yeah, Trey shouldn't have played, right? Like today. Like, just give him a couple plays. I'll have no issue with it. To me, it will be interesting if Jimmy struggles, how Kyle, like, does he operate in, like, the 3-batter minimum, mixing, like, oh, I'm going to go Trey for these couple plays, then back in, and then back. Like, he will. But, and does Jimmy, can he build up enough equity where he gets a couple games worth, or is it just kind of, is he going to live game to game? It's just the nature of their situation. Because what if Trey comes in and has some success? You're like, whoa, makes a couple sweet plays. Does he kind of get, I'll just let him kind of roll for a second? Yeah. Because you didn't need that to happen today. One, he threw the touchdown, and the other one, like, he just got stuffed in a run. You're like, I'll bring him back out. Let's run. We're better off running Elijah Mitchell. Like, that to me is what you're going to learn. Part of it is like, well, if he's not going to be that productive of a runner, I don't need to waste it on my quarterback, put him in harm's way, and take it out of the guy's hands.
To give the other team something more to practice, which is some value, but
it's out there enough now. Like, they know.
Yes.
Right?
They're ready. They're practicing for him. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll see next week. I would have. You play Jalen Hurts next week.
Really quick though, before the Eagle stuff, just on Trey Lance.
Yeah. No, I'm still talking about Trey.
I do think it is important, and they kind of mentioned this during the broadcast, and I think cognitively he's probably thinking about this, and ideally he wants to do this, but just the way the game plays out. Your take was dead on from the jump once we learned, like, Trey Lance, this guy needs reps. Well, giving him these reps for run plays, like, I'm sorry, it's not really a game rep. Like, he's going to – now, I guess you get a little more like, these guys don't hit as hard as I thought, or all that bullshit. I need reps with him throwing the ball. But then, logically, this is where it won't make much sense. What if Jimmy's throwing the ball well? So it's like, your guy's in there, you're trying to win these games, I'm just going to bring Trey in to throw the ball. Like, you're kind of just bringing him in to run, but the only way he can improve – like, let's face it, the instincts as a runner, like, those, he either has those or he doesn't. To me, the throwing stuff is like, well, what does he do when you call that one play against too deep coverage? Like, does he have a good feel for that? What happens when they bring a blitz? Like, you need to get him those reps.
Yeah.
That's, to me, the balance. Like, do you gain that much out of a run if he has 10 plays in the game and 8 of them are runs, like, does he develop?
No, not really. Not in the way you need him to. But the reason so 2 points now to that. One, the reason I brought up Hurts was just you and I always talk over the years about when you see a big-armed quarterback play another big-armed quarterback. Let's see an athletic quarterback, right? He's the starter for the Eagles. What does he look like on the field versus what does Trey Lance look like when he comes onto the field? That was the point I was making on Hurts. But here's the other, and Joe Staley said this the other day. Like, pay on this podcast. You don't pay Jimmy. It's funny to hear players talk about the money, right? Like you don't pay Jimmy Garoppolo $25 million unless you're going to plan to use him. So the Niners, yes, they're very invested in Trey Lance. The picks that they spent to draft Trey Lance have been spent, and now the money that they have spent to make Jimmy Garoppolo their quarterback, that money is spent. It's all gone. They can't get the $25 million back. They can't get the 3 first rounders, 2 first rounders back, right? So none of that stuff matters right now today. It matters, I think, moving forward if your team isn't very good. It matters in the offseason when it comes time to decide what you do with Garoppolo. It matters if Washington football team gets on the horn and is like, hey, we're stuck. We need a quarterback, right? It matters if someone calls about a trade. But when it comes to deciding what you're going to do in the game right now, what gives your team the best chance to win, they both have huge costs associated with them. And I say that because we always talk about it with Jimmy. Like, you spent all the picks on Jimmy. We talk about it with Trey. You spent all the picks on Trey. Now you got to use him. Well, they've spent what they've spent. Now it's about who's ready to play and who can win.
Yeah, I mean, I know what Joe's saying, and listen, you and I, we talk about this nonstop. Everyone talks about this nonstop as a fan and YouTube chats and you name it, the money. Parag, Jed, they think about it a lot. I'm sure John Lynch, it crossed his mind. Once you get into a game, I don't think Kyle thinks for 1 second about whose salary and what they're invested in individual players, right?
Right.
I mean, he knows who his best players are, and by that, like on this team, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Fred Warner, Jimmy, like they're paid the most. But like, I don't think now that they're going, I'd argue now that it's over, that Jimmy's $25 million is pretty irrelevant moving forward. Like just moving forward. Like he's the starter because he's earned it and good.
Right, but I'm
like,
saying right now,
moving forward,
so are the 2 first-round picks they spent on Trey Lance are irrelevant right now today. They're not going to be irrelevant for the future because he's the quarterback of the future.
yeah.
But right now, today, it doesn't matter now.
Neither of it matters, right? The
Right.
$25 million or what you gave up, you're just like, what do you have to do to win at Lincoln Financial Field Sunday? And nobody, and you notice this really in college football, I guess it's because they immediately get interviewed after the game, the coach. Where the NFL, you have to like go to their team's YouTube channel to like watch their coach talk. He doesn't always get interviewed off the field. It's actually usually, I guess it's never a coach. No, it's always a player. But in college, they go right to the coach. And the coach by the third question is 100% always after a huge win, bringing up their next opponent. Well, it's like, we got about, I give these guys about 12 more hours and we're on to Ole Miss. We are on to UCLA. Where it's just it's like, God, you just won and you're already talking about your next opponent. But I would say that 100% of the time, the next opponent comes up in the coaching interview on the field after an enormous win, where that's just the way these guys think. And the Eagles is going to be I don't even know why I went off on that tangent, but they're going to be on a completely different level than the Lions talent wise.
Yeah.
Which is fun, exciting. Like I think we kind of, when the schedule came out, we poo-pooed kind of the start, and this game kind of lived up to the poo-poo, even though the last couple minutes were entertaining. The Eagles are in a completely different stratosphere, I'd say, than the Lions. And I'm not saying the Eagles they might be a 7-win team, but they're on a different level talent-wise, which is fun, which makes this game cool, like it was big.
Also, on a really basic level, we'll talk about this as the week goes along, their quarterback does a thing that has given the Niners a hard time. It gives a lot of teams a hard time. Your quarterback is mobile. Jalen Hurts rushed for 62 yards against Atlanta on Sunday, in addition to being 27-35 for 264 and 3 touchdowns. Now, Atlanta stinks, probably, but still, that was on the road.
They beat the shit out of them.
32-6.
Yeah. I'm excited.
All right, John, before we go any further, let's tell the people, let's welcome back our friends. We through the summer, through the early portions of the pandemic when everyone was just hanging out on Zoom, now you can get free a little bit. WineAccess.com/ham. WineAccess.com/ham. Where right now, when you go to WineAccess.com/ham, you basically save 33% because they're giving you $50 off on your first order of over $150 of some of the best wines in the world.
Say that again.
I will repeat, $50 off your first order of $150 or more. So stock up with some of the best wines, some of the hardest to get wines. They sent us again. This is the third time they've sent us shipments. You and I have both sent wine to people. We both ordered for ourselves. They sent us several bottles. Each bottle comes with recommendations of how to eat it. They recommended that the Two Angels Petite Syrah, which is a $45 bottle, is perfect when you fire up the grill. So, I don't need much encouragement to fire up the grill, John. Grab a couple of steaks on Friday night, a couple of baked potatoes, bam, 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 bam. You pop open the Two Angels Petite Syrah. It was fantastic. You and I, we've actually done some wine tastings on this show. Highly recommend. $20, $200, wineaccess.com/ham.
Habermans are living like kings and queens. Listen, we've worked with Wine Access for this exclusive offer. Exclusive offer, guy. Get $50 off your first order of $150 or more. That's fantastic. I can't recommend enough. Go use our special URL, wineaccess.com/ham. Save $50, people. Go get it.
It's for me, I know when I started getting the Wine Access shipments, I don't know much about wine. Every bottle comes with an explanation, the history of it, so you learn about the wine. It tells you how to drink what to drink it with. Shipping's included, by the way, when you get 6 or more bottles. So you can actually kind of rig the system. If you get the 150, you're gonna get if you spend the 150 on 6 bottles, you're gonna get the $50 off, and you're gonna get the included shipping. So that's just a little pro tip there, John. Tip from the pros. Lay up? No. Go for the green. Spend the 150, get the 6 bottles. Wineaccess.com/ham. Again, I'll just recommend the Two Angels Petite Syrah. You can throw that one in there, but you can get a bunch of $20 bottles. You can get $200 or more. They're what did we say, like 18,000 bottles, 20,000 bottles they sample over the course of the year, but they don't all make it. Only the best of the best make it on the website.
Only 1 in 18, guy.
1 in 18.
Do not lay up. Billy Horschel this morning, I saw BMW Championship in Europe. Won it. He didn't lay up. So, get on it right now. Wineaccess.com/ham. How about our friends at DraftKings? Download the DraftKings app, promo code HAM. We just had a game. It's actually still going now because the Sunday night game's going. You and I did not do very well. And here's the key. You download the DraftKings app. You type in the promo code HAM. It's simple. Then you get $50,000, and you have to put a team together under the salary cap. And if you're like me or Guy, your team's not going to be that great. You're going to have Jalen Hurts on your roster and go, you know what? I'll take Sam Darnold instead. And you'll realize you're an idiot. You should have just gone with your gut. Take Kyle Pitts because everyone told you how great Kyle Pitts is. Then you look down, he's got like 3 points. You're like, yeah, I knew I should have taken Devontae Smith. He had a touchdown. Would have double dipped if I took him and Jalen. But if you would have done moves like that, you could win. Our winner in our game, $450, guy. We did a game of 200 people. And we will do another game this week because, as you can tell, people loved it. And get in the NFL action with a free shot at $1 million in total prizes. Just download the DraftKings app now. Use the code HAM. This week, new customers get a shot at millions of dollars. Enter code HAM. Get a free shot at millions in total prizes with your first deposit. That's code HAM only at DraftKings, the official partner of the National Football League. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. And see DraftKings.com for details.
Shout out to a DB Heiss, the first place winner. Top 10 in our game paid this week. 10th place. Paid $72. We'll get another game fired up this week. DB Heiss won despite having Raheem Mostert. I don't know where your team is, but it's not behind mine. Out of the 200 participants, I'm 192nd. I decided that no one was going to take Matt Ryan. I was right. I was wrong to take him. Almost, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. My 9 people on a roster, including the defense. I had the Texans defense. It was almost the best performing thing I had. Of the 9 roster slots, 7 of them have the little snowflake emoji, which means you're ice cold next to their performance. So not very good.
How many points did Matty Ice have today?
7.36, which is 0.36 more than the Texans defense.
That's pretty terrible.
But how about Elijah Moore, John? 0.70 for the Jets. 0.70 production. That's a low performance.
Not good.
I'm going to go ahead and guess that. How many people? No, actually, no. Only 2 of the people that finished behind me forgot to make their lineups. So,
not a great start.
No, I could have been in 194th. I was, bad.
I'll tell you this: next week, I'm not overthinking it. I'll promise you that. I'm not going to overthink.
I had Russ, DK, and I had Russ, Lockett, and Christian McCaffrey in my original lineup, and then I made some changes.
Good move there.
Seems like a lineup you'd want to make changes on, right? Like, I don't know, Russ, DK, Lockett, McCaffrey. I don't think those guys got it this week.
You're like the bulky of fantasy football, daily fantasy.
They sell at the wrong time, I'll tell you that.
Bulky's winning percentage shot up for about 3 years. I feel like it's plummeted and continues to plummet. His last 2 years and then the start of this year, it could be long.
The key came back. He's just got to get the sample size big, and hopefully.
Yeah, but it could just swing so far the other way. Like he's got Harbaugh those 4 years, but then he's got a lot of other years that are going to drown him down. You get some 12-4 years, they can go down quick if you, especially now with the 17th game. Like 3-14 adds up fast, guy.
John, on YouTube, Dan says Brandon Ayuk had a 0.00. Yeah, we noticed. What the hell? Now, after the game, Kyle Shanahan said, look, he had the hammy. He had not been practicing full. We got to be a little careful with him. Plus, Trent Sherfield had been right on his heels. My question, though, if he had the hammy, if you were concerned about, workload, then maybe you play him at receiver a little bit. Or you're really concerned about the hammy, you don't play him at all. But that's not what happened. He did end up on a punt return, and that was, I think, the extent of his action. I do not remember. I have not seen an official count whether he took a snap. I do not remember seeing him take a snap on offense. He certainly did not get, targeted or anything.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a story that comes out, maybe we'll learn more if there was a disciplinary action. Clearly, I think it's fair to say he's in Kyle's doghouse. I understand, like, I'm much more liberal when it comes to hard action with good players. I do understand coaches are an authority figure, especially with young players. And if you feel that something is before it, becomes a problem, you almost want to nip it in the bud. And that's something coaches do a lot with younger players. Sometimes they draw a hard line. This is not, to me, something typically that happens with an established guy. And part of it, you don't have to do that, right? Like Andy would never have to do something with Kelsey, or Kyle would never have to do something with Kittle, or McVay never has to do something with Aaron Donald. Even though those human beings could have a fuck up, right, in life, let alone football-wise. I do think you have to be careful with this stuff, though, because he is, for a younger coach, and I think Kyle and just his crew, most of our lives, like that, the younger guys were just like their only opportunity to be a head coach was usually in college. Like I feel like most NFL coaches, like in the 90s, even early in the 2000s, looked old. Now there's just a ton of like LaFleur. I mean, you and I would die for like LaFleur's, waist size right now. Like they're all kind of look young. They all look like mid-major college coaches. Kyle, for a young, he's 41 years old, is kind of an old school hard ass. Like that's kind of shit Belichick would do. Again, I've been around, like Andy and Pat Hill were a little more open-minded with that shit. Like they just had a soft spot for their elite talent and they just dealt with it later. And Kyle's not, like, to me, if he's not happy with Brandon Ayuk this next week, like, he won't play again. Like that's just the way he rolls. He's kind of old school with the discipline stuff. And I'm where I come from, and really just the way I lean, I'd be like, yeah, just let him play.
Yeah, I wonder if he were playing the Rams week 1, if he would have let him play. Now, part of the context for this is the tweet from Matt Mayoko this morning. When somebody asked him, where's Brandon Ayuk? Mayoko tweeted, after a hot start in training camp, Ayuk tailed off dramatically. He's still learning how to be a pro. Kyle Shanahan clearly favors some other receivers right now. Message sent, right? Now, Matt did not just make that up while he was sitting there watching the game, and he's like, I wonder what the deal is. Maybe Ayuk's not playing because he's learning how to be a pro. He understands the context of what he's saying. So there's something there beyond, the hamstring. But again, I would say even without that context, we could understand if you're concerned about the hamstring, why does he play on punt return? If you're concerned about the hamstring from a workload standpoint, why doesn't he take a few snaps on offense? Make him a decoy.
Once I saw Matt's tweet, I mean, you and I are in this business long enough to know, like, okay, Kyle's really mad at him. Yeah. That to me, it's like, no hamstring. Like, there's no injury issue. Like, Kyle's fucking pissed off at him. Kyle was sending a message. Kyle did what again, back to what I just don't think young coaches really operate like this often, right? Because they're always scared to just piss off a player, talented guys. Like Kyle is, that's what I'm saying. He is old school for a guy who's like 40 years old. Because typically you think, oh, players, coaches, they deal with it separately. Like that's, which I respect. But my ultimate point is like, you need this guy. He's one of your most talented guys. You're going to play way more talented teams. And like, when you have him going with this version of Debo and George, who just is on a mission every time he catches the ball, it's like, George, we got to be careful. We don't need to kill 7 defensive backs. But it's the way he plays. Can you imagine how much talent they have when they have Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle? Like that's high.
Yes,
end.
I can imagine. I think we've talked about it a lot. I think that's what they need this year. Now, the good news for them is Sherfield clearly is trustworthy, right? But part of this is on Ayuk. Like you're in the perfect, you're in a great spot to produce right here. You got Debo, you got Kittle, you got this run game, you got Shanahan. Don't screw it up.
Now I'll even play devil's advocate to what I was saying about Kyle being a hard ass. You could argue that really he's like a modern day Belichick in the sense of there was no fucking around there. So it was a double whammy, right? It's like if you didn't buy in, he'll bench you, won't play you, do whatever. But then even during the week, there's no fun or it's all on his terms. Kyle is like that with the game. Like if he thinks you're fucking around or not ready, he just won't play. He doesn't care. But during the week and just with his players in general, he is hands off if they just like he lets them be them, right? He's not trying to like micromanage individuals. He's not old school in that way. He's actually very player friendly. Like I think if you just look at their star guys like Fred, George, Trent Williams, whoever, like he does they the hell they want just because he knows football wise they're a 10 out of 10. Like to me the question is Ayuk half-assing it now in practice? Is he not studying hard enough? Does he just feel like, and part of it might just be Trent Sherfield. You read Larry Fitzgerald's quotes last week is like, Johnny try hard here. You know, I mean, so the bar is just like, you got these guys, you got Trey Lance probably studying all these hours. Jimmy's got to match him. There's probably just a lot of studying going on there. And if he thinks you're falling behind, it's like, hey, buddy, you're not going to play.
Well, and also, I don't think anything we've ever heard from a player lines up with the Belichick level of being. I don't want to use the word difficult. Bill's the best NFL coach, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Difficult's not the word, but clearly things are a little looser around Kyle than they are Bill. You basically said that.
That's my point. Yeah.
There's not. I don't get a sense that players at all feel like the opposite, that he's unfair. In fact, players I think often talk about that he is fair, that he treats everybody the same. Now you're saying, well, I mean, your best player, maybe he shouldn't be treated the same, or one of your best players, maybe he shouldn't be treated the same. But it feels like it's one of the main tenets of Kyle Shanahan's operation is that there are standards for everybody, and we're all going to hold each other to them. Now that's also a Bill thing, right? It's why Tom feels like he finally got out of the house at 18 years old now that he's in Tampa. But I think the question is like, would he have done it if it were a more difficult opponent? Would he have done it if he didn't have Trent Sherfield there that he trusted, clearly? I don't know, but I know this. They're going to need the guy. They're going to need the guy. So yeah, I hope he plays this week and that this whatever they just did fixed it.
You could argue the reality is he did. So, like, they just need Ayuk to respond so they can use him, right? It's just that simple. Like, it's over. He got benched. He didn't fucking play. And they're going to need him moving forward badly. Partly because he can excel. Like, in 2 weeks they play the Packers. Every time I looked up, Jameis is throwing bombs. So it's like they have one really good corner. The Eagles' corners are a major question mark. Like Brandon, like you can make plays against these teams, and they're going to need you to make plays. So it's like now you could say the ball's in his court. For whatever he wants out of you, it's clear. He wants something. So you just need to match that. Like sometimes it is, we're all human beings. So anytime, in jobs I've had, when you get called out, it can be really rattling, whether that's in front of the group you're working with or just you individually. But like then it is kind of on you to look in the mirror. Just they've asked me to do something that they thought I wasn't doing. Can I do that? And every time, at least I know for me personally, in football situations, and this is all like scouting, coaching type stuff. If you answer, they're happy with you. Like coaches don't. The thing about coaches, sneaky, very short memory of like, listen, we're mad at you. We need you to figure this out. We want to move on because they don't naturally hold on. They're just that's not the way they think, right? They're just already like on to the Eagles. So it's like, well, can you whatever game plan we give, can you just go all out, whatever we're asking?
Unlike your parents when you're 9, coaches need the players. Your parents, when you're 9 years old and you get in trouble, your dad's mad at you for a week. Like you're not bringing anything to the table.
Nothing.
You're not earning any money. You're not driving your sister to soccer. You're not bringing it. Like you are, from the moment you're there and for a long time, you're just you're a minus.
You're a liability.
You're a liability. Yeah. You better, hopefully they like being around you.
Good point.
But
Ayuk
coaches
could be an
need,
asset.
in the end, he needs them.
Yeah.
He needs them. Yeah. So. But he's not the only guy they need. Jason Verrett got hurt. And that's a problem because this was an area of he wasn't the only guy that got hurt either. Drake Greenlaw has a groin situation. He had a pick 6 in the game. We know he matters. But we've already got an injury situation with them. And I don't know if they're the unluckiest team when it comes to artificial turf. We don't know what the situation yet is with Verrett. But there were several spots they couldn't afford injuries. Kinlaw wasn't there. Didn't make the trip.
Not good.
So remember the first day.
They're not coming home.
They're not going to swoop by on their way to West Virginia.
So unless he's meeting them out wherever they're staying, like that's a problem.
You remember the
like,
first
to me,
day?
Are they swinging back and picking him up for the Packers, or is he meeting them out there? Because if he doesn't, he's out 2 weeks minimum. I actually think the Kinlaw is a bigger injury than Verrett. Not that Verrett is not a major injury because he is talented, but I don't know how you ever depended on a guy that was injured all the time. Like they did draft Kinlaw in the top 15, and he is a massive human being that I don't know would really help their run defense. Like I felt like just watching today, like he gives 20 plays or all these runs. He's huge. He's one of the bigger players in the league. So it's just like your corners, even Jason Verrett is going to give up plays. Like your corners are just kind of your corners. They are a pass rush defense or just a front 4 defense. Like everything is predicated the last 3 years on those 4 guys kicking ass. And it's much easier to control the line of scrimmage when 99 is, MIA. I just wrote down MIA. I don't even know what the fuck he is.
On the Dolphins? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, missing in action.
What was the
with
first day of
something
OTAs?
that's like a knee injury, and then it was like, well, this summer he was on a plane, and then it was a bulky knee, and then he was cool, then he practiced. Now it's a knee again. Like, I got this whole thing red flag.
Well,
like, Verrett is an all-time sad what could have been because he's been hurt 75 times, and it sucks. He's a high-character guy, freak talent, but his career, like when you say his name out loud to any football fan, they would just be like, oh, that guy got injured. Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's when you see the shot of Raheem Mostert on the sideline, because I didn't mention him, and they're like, Mostert has a knee injury. Like, well, yeah, okay. But the Buckner absence, well, but you got Ayuk and Kinlaw out of it. Well, okay. Well, for Buckner in week 1, you got 1 punt return for, 7 yards, 1 guy at home. So, and you just said it. Like, it'd be one thing if you said broken toe, 8 weeks, whatever. I don't know. But this is like, or old guy, knee, he's just going to have to manage this the rest of his career.
Yeah. Tom Ball Lee, you just got to give him weeks off, right? Or whatever. You'd be like, he's earned it.
But this, you're like, well, is he ever going to play for them with any consistency, let alone be an impact player? Say what you want about Solomon Thomas. Till he got hurt, he was available. Is this guy going to be available? Are they even – because here's the other part of it, right? You and I went to practices, and without just observing, there were a couple practices you and I on the sideline were watching going, he's like, I don't mind the guy starting fights, but it just felt a little – I don't know, at times maybe a little immature. I don't know what it was, but
he is 23 years old. I mean, he's not old.
And he's a big guy and body parts, knees. But it's just I don't feel like I feel like they don't have clarity on what the situation is, and that's the scary part. If they knew here was the injury, here's the recovery time, fine. But it started from the beginning, from day one. He was on a plane. It was swollen, and we talked about it. We're like, uh-oh. They're like, no biggie. No, it's not a big deal. Totally normal. It's like, okay, if you say so. Well, it was something. It turned out we were right, and the people that thought it was something were right. It was something.
Well, put it this way.
Everything's something.
1 to 10, 10, you're very confident it's going to, 10, very confident, 1, not confident at all. Where would you put Javon Kinlaw in uni, lining up in snaps against the Birds?
1.
Yeah, 2. What, highest?
Why would I be higher than 1? He just didn't play. I thought you were going to say, like, how about this on 1 to 10 scale? He plays 12 games this year.
I mean, I'd put that really low that he gets over 12. I mean, I would say right now, if you got like 6 or 7 out of him, it'd feel like gravy. Like, are we just like through the first quarter of the season? Like, to me, it already feels like you're through 4 games or whatever. It's like we haven't seen him play a snap. Like,
well,
when's the guy getting uniform?
I know. Well, I think what you might get is like 2 weeks not play. Here he is. He's back. And then it's, oh, no, it didn't. He was back, but now something's up again. Right? It's not quite responding the way they want or he wants or whatever.
Yeah,
it's a problem.
And I think, listen, he is tied at the hip with the trade. And I got a text today. If you called the Colts and said Armstead, Kinlaw, straight up Buckner, you get a buzzer. I guess there's no such thing as buzzers anymore. We all have cell phones, so you just hang up and it just goes dead. You just don't hear anything. There's no like rotor phones where you hear the noises. No one hears noises anymore.
John, unless you're on the unless you're on the phone with your mom and it's like, all right, talk to you later, and then it's just like, why is it always my responsibility to hang up the phone? My mom just says bye and just does whatever she was doing. Like, all right, I'll hang it up. I got this one.
But does your mom? Do you call on a home line?
No, so my parents got rid of the landline.
Oh, see, they're progressive. My mom's still holding on to a landline.
Well, it's not because
even though she only responds now on her phone.
It's only because all they got was me, and telemarketers. Those are the only people that called the landline. Anyway, but back to your point on Javon Kinlaw.
They just
you were saying if you called the Colts, yeah.
Yeah, with those 2 guys. I mean, I don't even know what the trade. There's no chance. Which I think we might have come to that agreement last year when the trade was made. You're like, listen, it might take a while for this, but it feels you're way behind the 8 ball. You're not even getting anything out of the pick. That's where it becomes a kick into the cojones. Like, part of when you see Amari Cooper catch all these balls, you're like, well, who do we get for it? It's like, oh, Jonathan Abram. You got Jonathan Abram. So, like, it's just you got one player for that guy. That's what it is, one-on-one. Ultimately, with Buckner, there was more to it. There was money. But, well, I saw you make the trade, and then ultimately you replace him with the same position. It'd be one thing if, right guard or something, but he is a defensive tackle. Like, you obviously his style was a little different in DeForest, but you guys admitted, like, we got rid of this player. He was the best player on the board, same position. And DeForest, his best characteristic for a while was durability, and just he was always around.
And even
before he was like some 8-sack guy.
Even if Buckner was not a part of this at all, it was a first-round pick for a team that has already been to the Super Bowl. Is getting players. You have players that are getting paid, so you're getting more expensive. Even if Buckner was not a part of this, if Buckner just retired, and you just had this first-round pick, you got to hit on these picks.
Yeah.
You got to hit on these picks. So now you got that.
Pick 14, guy, 14.
Who had September 12th as the day that Kyle Shanahan admitted that, yes, he's been in contact with Richard Sherman and that Sherman's a possibility? 1 week. Mosley didn't play. Verrett's hurt.
Do you think we got Norman and Sherman out of the DB spots by about week 4?
Week 4? I mean, Norman will be there week 2.
Lenore, actually, I saw the PFF number, did well today.
They nailed the Lenore pick, and they nailed the Elijah Mitchell pick after 1 week. But Ambry Thomas returned a punt, and Trey Sermon didn't play. So I guess you could call it a wash. It's better for your cheaper players to be performing, John. That way
their second-round pick, Aaron Banks, he didn't play either. He not a starter.
But that one we knew already.
Yeah, that one we knew.
So, I mean, Greenlaw we'll see. But it just This is the nature of the sport. Guys get hurt. It's going to happen to every team, but
Part of
I think
football,
you're a
you
little
have to.
sensitive to it when you have seen
Yeah.
what has gone on with them.
I just think people in general with injuries freak. Like, it's just part of football, right? It sucks. No one wants anyone to get hurt. Like, you see Fitzpatrick laying there on the ground and like, you're like, oh my God, that looks painful. Like, you just see guys around the league get hurt, and it will continue to happen all season long because it's the nature of the sport. But like, you're right. This team is more under a microscope because it feels like they lead the league in IR for like the last decade.
Yeah. And the draft is the draft's a little out of whack right now. Now, again, if you draft 2 running backs and one of them hits, and you draft 2 corners and one of them hits, that'll put you in the Hall of Fame if you're one out of every 2 guys you draft becomes a starter for you, right? Like Elijah Mitchell, as long as Elijah Mitchell looks like that, if Trey Sermon doesn't play for 6 weeks, you go, yeah, but Elijah Mitchell looks like that. If Diamador Lenore is a starter, then the fact that you drafted Ambry Thomas ahead of him and Diamador Lenore plays more, ideally, it turns out you probably need both of them, right? But you can't always do the thing where it's like, oh, yeah, the 5th rounders are the ones that get nailed.
True, but if you get impact players, it'll catch up on you. But ultimately, like, Richard Sherman was a 5th-round pick, and he became a Hall of Famer. But they also got Bruce Irvin, like, was their 1st-round pick, who was just a 5-year starter until they didn't resign him and he went somewhere else. But he was he was a starter on a Super Bowl team. So can you get starters out of these players? Can they play? Because to me, there's a big difference. Like, I think Solomon Thomas is a good example. Complete whiff. If you could do it over again, 100% would not have picked him. But he was not like a healthy scratch by year 2. Like, he was a 4-year start, 4-year player, multiple year starter, and then as they got
Plays
better,
a freshman
he
all
was
the
a
way to
backup.
his senior year. Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. So it's like, can you just get that out of some of those guys, which right now it's only week 1, and now we got really old school. This would be week 1 coming up because you got 16 more weeks, right, of games. So
Wait, what?
17 more. You got, because there's 17 weeks left in 16 games.
Oh, yeah, so you're saying there's 16 weeks left?
Back in the day. So this was like, as
Week 0?
as I saw a bunch of Packers fans tweeting, like, they're just treating this like the 4th preseason game. What's the biggie, Ultimately, you just need to get several of your high-end guys. And listen, it's not just this draft. Kinlaw and Ayuk factor in. Those guys were 1st-round picks last year. Like, I'm sorry, you just need impact with your high-end guys. Especially big picture, you can't just fill in everything with free agency. They're going to need some players that they've drafted over the last couple of years to fill in the roster on this team. Not trying to get ahead of ourselves, but in 22 and 23, it's a nature of team building. You're going to be as good as some of these guys are going to become as just like, can they be high-end role players, or are they just whiffs?
Right. Well, I mean, McGlinchey being a 10-year starter for them at right tackle is going to be a big part of that fabric, right? If you backed up McGlinchey and then hit Bosa and Samuel the next year and you're punter for the next 10, 12 years, whatever, good. If he's not, and Bosa's really the only 1st-rounder you hit in like a 3-year span, when you had – no. I mean, because they have Kinlaw, Ayuk, boom, boom, Bosa, McGlinchey, that's 4. Thomas Foster, let's not forget about Rubin in 15, that's 5. So that's 5 1st-rounders in the course of a 4-year 1, 2, 3, 4 stretch. Does that add up? No. 2, 4, 6. Sorry, I can't do math. 6 1st-rounders in a 4-year span, right? Well, if Kinlaw and Ayuk, if Ayuk's really good and Kinlaw's solid, that's 4 of your 6 are impacting your football team. If Kinlaw's always hurt and Ayuk's not playing in week 2 much either, now your 2 of your 6 are impacted. There's a big difference.
Because let's face it, their 1st-rounder this year is not having that much of an impact at this rate, right? So if you factor in Trey as well,
right? Yep.
Because he could have just been some other player. He could have been, I don't know, Devontae Smith or whoever. You just name the player, right? Kyle Pitts. You just someone that helped them. Like, they're getting a guy that potentially, worst case from an impact standpoint is playing 2 or 3 plays a game, which also could turn into best case. That means they're probably winning if that's what they keep doing. But you do limit the better teams you play, you just need more higher end players. Like, I got the Rams in the background. Like, every once in a while you just flash. You're like, oh, there's Jalen Ramsey. There's fucking Aaron Donald, right? those are the guys that make most of the plays. You're good players. That's why Ohio State, Oregon. Like there was like 5 guys that you truly remember from the game. That's what happens in high-end games. The cream rises to the top. And the Niners are going to be they're depending on these guys being high-end players.
Well, and who knows?
They drafted high.
Especially at the running back spot where they use multiple guys a year. Like, they probably will need both Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell, right?
One problem for them, though, is Mostert is, for them, a high-end player. Like, he is clearly really good, right? You saw that first drive, you're like, God damn, this guy can run. Yeah. You know, those outside pitches, he can hit that. But remember when they made their Super Bowl run? He was a blue-chip guy for him. Like, how he played. His play. Blue chip. So can they get combined out of, let's just say Mostert, he's going to be in and out of the lineup all year long. Can they combine the next 3 guys to combine into one Mostert? I don't know. Mitchell was good today, but he's playing the Lions. Yeah. He's going to need some help.
Well, that's why I say he's going to need Trey Sermon to be solid for him. And I think it's clear you're going to need Ambry Thomas at some point.
You know what it shows you? And we talked for months about the draft. A guy from Ohio State that transferred to Oklahoma, or vice versa, started at Oklahoma, went to Ohio State. You would go, who's more ready to come in and help the Niners that have playoff expectations? The guy that transferred from Oklahoma, that went to Ohio State and was with Justin Fields up until the national championship, or this dude from this school in Louisiana, not LSU, but one of those other ones, runs really hard, take him like late round, and then it's like, no problem, he beats him out. And it's like not even a question clearly in Kyle's mind. Like, that guy's fucking playing. One injury, Kyle just rides that guy. But it goes back to the draft. We do it every year. I'm as guilty. We're all guilty. It is impossible. No one knows. Because does Elijah Mitchell, now maybe he would have if he would have got there by the time he was like 22 years old. But in no world would we be like, I bet Elijah Mitchell would be better than Trey Sermon right now in Ohio State. Like, no one would say that.
Right.
But then 6 months later, you get around like better players, and this guy's already better. And it doesn't seem weird. Like, I watch him run, go, God damn, I'd fucking run him too.
In college, and maybe this will change, the best player doesn't always play if it's close. Sometimes you're like, oh, well, we got the 4-star guy that transferred. What are you going to play? The other guy he'll get next year. Now the portal's around, and you can't hold a guy till next year because that guy just might be gone, right? If Elijah Mitchell's your backup running back, and he got 3 carries against Michigan and ran for 60 yards and a touchdown because he had an explosive, you can't keep him on the bench behind Trey Sermon because he just might transfer to Penn State. Yeah, I don't need you. Whatever, I'm out of here. You can't do that where you like hold me down. In the NFL, you don't play that game about, oh, well, this was the local 5-star guy, and, you know, his high school coach also has this other guy, so I got to keep him happy. You don't play that game. You don't play the game. This guy we watched his college tape, and we're like, yep, that looks like Kyle Shanahan running back. And then he looked the same or maybe better in the NFL today.
It looked exactly the same, but what he was doing at Louisiana Lafayette or Tech or wherever the hell he played against like that level of competition. Now, this was the Lions, but I was thinking today watching Okudah. Do you remember in that draft, everyone was like, Okudah, this can't miss.
Yep.
Okudah, he's just the corner. This is what it looks. Revis, this is the type. Like, this guy, you plug and play. You got yourself a lockdown corner decade. Healthy, 14 years, multiple second contracts. And it's like he's one of the bigger busts right now in the league. He's on a terrible team. He looks terrible.
Now Matt Stafford's on another team, and they didn't draft Justin Herbert because they drafted Jeff Okudah.
I know. It's just...
And now they're going to spend the next decade looking for a quarterback.
But if you would have said, if like Jeff Okudah on draft night would have gone maybe where he would, if you could redraft right now, let's say Jeff Okudah's not even close to a first-round pick, and Jeff Okudah goes like pick 69 or something, that would have been the number one story in the draft, right? Like by the third night. Like, Jeff Okudah? This guy to the third round? Did people find out he killed someone? But then you watch him like 2 years later, you're like, God, this guy's a major liability out there. The team hates him. It's just, shit changes so fast, which is fun. I mean, we love talking about the draft as much as anyone. This draft was awesome. But it is just that.
Yeah,
it's just draft talk.
Yeah, but there's also no perfect prospect, right? Like the way we talk about a player, and you know this because you've been in the draft rooms, like almost every player, there is something else. I'm not saying a skeleton in the closet, but there's just, but if he's gonna fail, if we just did a thing on every prospect called "If he's gonna fail, why would he fail?" We'd miss on that too. We'd be like, yeah, he failed, but it wasn't for the reason we thought he was gonna fail. But there would be stuff, right?
Yeah.
There would be stuff.
And in fairness to Okudah, like it is hard to excel for the Lions, right?
Right.
It's easier. Is Elijah Mitchell, if he goes to a different team, maybe he doesn't make the team. Like scheme is very uniquely tied to the sport. Like if I'm a great point guard, I'm going to the majority of programs and I'm going to have an impact. If I'm a certain type of running back, I'm going to have more success in certain schemes than others. Like you said, when we watched Elijah, it was like, yeah, this is the ideal guy. Kind of ran like Raheem Mostert, I thought.
We're like, where have they been hiding this guy? He's perfect. Like I'm sure I would imagine Kyle's reaction when he saw that tape was, or like if you're one of his scouts, if you're Adam Peters and you're like, think of it like you're like a personal shopper and you find a sweater like, oh, this would be perfect for John. This color would look great with his skin tone. You see that running back, you're like, oh, got a piece. Go ahead and hit the shopping cart. Kyle will love this one.
Well, I had this thought watching Ohio State, Oregon yesterday. All Oregon's DBs, Lenore's the Oregon guy, right?
Yeah.
They all look cool in the uni because any guy that's like 6 feet, 195 pounds, you just look cool in it. You're all skinny. You just look like you're born to wear a uniform. Every guy in their defensive backfield thinks 100% they're a pro. And they should. Same thing with Ohio State, like all the DBs. Yet there's probably 2 pro DBs out of the group, maybe more, get ultimate shots, but the guys, they're going to get drafted really high. Yet there are guys on other random shitty teams. Like there might be a dude on like Vanderbilt right now.
UNLV
much
has
better
a corner.
Yeah.
I mean,
a better prospect. Yeah, maybe not them. But like Nevada, let's say, or, just a random UCF, where if you told that number 7 or 8 on Oregon or 5 on Ohio State, they'd be like, are you fucking high? I played Ohio State. I start for the Buckeyes. I'm a 3-year starter, dog. And in their mind, they're 100% right. Like, I don't blame them for thinking that. But that guy is 100% a better pro prospect, and he's going to get drafted higher. And that's the thing with the NFL. Like, you just see it when it happens. The one thing you notice immediately with Sewell, he's really powerful, and because he's so strong. So it's like, you know what? He actually is very comfortable on the left side. When Nick just tries to run him over, and he got him once on a bull rush that I think ended up leading to a Nick sack, but it was more just a hustle sack. It was like Sewell's going to be able to handle just a guy running at him. Like he's built for that. Now there's some speed stuff he'll figure out, but it's like that is, if you just have something to work with, like that's what you want to work with. Like it's just, you can tell right away physically, right? Like remember Eric Flowers? There was like 2 snaps. You're like, oh my God. Or even the Jonathan Martin thing. It was just like, no, he cannot do this. And you just knew right away. But anyone, Jonathan Martin coming out like 6'6", got great feet. He's coming from Stanford. At the time, they're putting all these pros. We always, and we did this when I worked in the NFL. And since now that we do this for a living, we talk about it. It's tried and true. 3-4 months later, we're having all these conversations every single year. It's like, we should have known, guy. We should have known.
But that's what makes the draft. That's part of what makes the draft fun, right? If every pick 1 through whatever it is, 560. You
got an automatic ROI on the pick or whatever.
Or 260 is the number. If it was just always like, yep, the first guy is always the best player, the second guy is always the second best player, then it wouldn't really matter who you would just, it wouldn't. But it's the risk. It's did we just make the greatest decision we've ever made or a colossal mistake? I don't know. We'll find out in a year or 2 or 3. Tua, Herbert, I will find out. That for every guy that's a warning, we forget when the draft rolls. We're like, no, this guy's perfect. And when it works, you go, we all knew Peyton was, of course, Peyton was the perfect prospect. We knew. Well, how many other guys did we know on that didn't hit? Did we know on Peyton? Like, did we really know? I mean, everyone talks Peyton and Luck. We knew. It's like, okay.
I thought he threw like 25 picks and they won 13 games. I bet some of those people watching that year thought, like, oh, is this going to work?
Ramon.
Like just a GM watching him play.
Well, yeah, maybe it'll be solid, but I don't know. Ramon said, what was the point of trading up for Sermon in the 3rd round if they can get these late round free agent type guys to be successful in the scheme?
We don't think like that.
Well, that's the funny thing. It's you're like, no, I'm gonna get the best of the group right here because I'm gonna draft him before I draft the other guy.
Well, if they would have taken Elijah Mitchell in the 3rd round, people around the league would have been like, are you guys nuts? Yet 2 years later, it would have been, potentially you'd be like, oh shit, if we could do that over, we would have taken Richard Sherman 7th overall. It's like, yeah, you took him in the 5th round. So it's easy to say 2 years later when he's an All-Pro, you just never know that. But you know kind of quickly that you either got something. Sometimes you don't always know that you don't got something, right? There can be late bloomers. I do think you know when you got a problem. And the Niners have a knee problem with Kinlaw. I'm confident that his size alone, that worst case, he's just a functional player. I know that. I saw it last year. Like he's a function when he's on the field, you're fine. Like he'd play for every team in the league.
He's above replacement level.
Yeah. Now, how high is the ceiling? That to me factors in. Like you got to play. Like part of Buckner getting a ceiling, he just got better and better because he played every week. So you keep improving. It's impossible to improve when you never play. I mean, it feels like this guy's hit rate right now in games is, I don't even know, it's low.
And even if you did improve when you never play, the improve is the second part. The never play is the important part.
Exactly.
Anthony said Sherman thoughts. We did mention a little earlier that Shanahan mentioned Richard Sherman. Although I'll add to it, I said several months ago I brought up that I thought there was a chance they were going to miss him. I think some people thought I was kind of crazy because he wasn't he's no longer a shutdown corner, and running with guys is not his strength. Obviously never was, and certainly is not anymore. But yeah, I think we're not that far away from him actually being able to help them. Now, we don't know his physical state, and right, he's got off the field all the stuff he's got to deal with and get himself right. But they're not that far away from him actually helping them.
Helping would be strong. Playing might be the right way to put
helping at this point. We just said with Kinlaw.
I might just see what you got in the two rookies before I do that.
But yeah, I mean, we're seeing what they got in Diamador Lenore. Like we're getting that, and we're gonna get more of Ambry Thomas too. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm just playing those guys.
Great, they're gonna have an opportunity. You're gonna find out here real quick.
Yeah, but I guess my point is
I'm not
we're
confident.
a couple spots away from Richard.
I'm saying I'm not confident it doesn't get there. I think it might get to that.
I wouldn't
say it's over 50% right now, but it's clearly on the table.
I could see when they come back, maybe a Richard Sherman workout just to gauge where he's at. Obviously not this week because wherever they are, but next Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, just to figure out whether they should keep him on speed dial.
Yeah. Because who knows? I mean, what he's been doing, right? From a football standpoint.
That's why Kyle called probably.
How you doing, Doug?
Yep. John, let's tell the people about RexMD.
Oh.
RexMD.com/ham. Men's health doesn't get much attention. It's partly our fault, fellas. We don't like to go to the doctor. Preach. Hand up. And we don't like talking about sensitive issues. A lot of men's health issues have a real simple solution. And RexMD.com/ham is here for that.
Yep, guy. RexMD.com has FDA-approved generic Viagra starting at just $2 per tablet, delivered discreetly to your door. Starter packs currently available for new customers. RexMD.com has helped over 100,000 men get generic Viagra from the comfort of their home. If you're looking for generic Viagra, RexMD has made the process fast, easy, mostly affordable. So don't wait another minute. RexMD is now offering starter packs of generic Viagra for new customers. Visit RexMD.com/ham. That's RexMD.com/ham.
It's never been easier to take control of your health. Half of all men experience ED after the age of 40. Those sample pack prescriptions are available at RexMD.com/ham. RexMD.com/ham. Podcast also brought to you by Upstart.com/ham. That's Upstart.com/ham. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments on debt and credit card bills today.
Guy, debt is something we all think about, we've all dealt with, and it can be overwhelming. We can relate. You're talking about two guys started a business from nothing. Ground floor. It can be overwhelming. You can look at your credit card expenses and go, what am I ever going to do? That's where places like Upstart, they know that you're more than just a credit score. It can be just sometimes you need help. And unlike other lenders, Upstart considers your income and current employment to find smarter rate for your loan. Within 5 minutes, the online rate check, you can see upfront for loans between $5,000 to $50,000, so up to $50,000 on whatever your personal loan rate would be to pay off your credit cards. And find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payment right now, today. Go to upstart.com/ham. That's upstart.com/ham. Use the URL to let them know that we sent you.
With a 5-minute online rate check, you can see your rate up front for loans between $1,000 to $50,000. That's a 5-minute online rate check between $1,000 and $50,000. Just check it out right now at upstart.com/ham.
Do it.
All right, John, as we're recording this, and maybe as things happen, but the Rams look good pretty early. I love the uniform adjustments they made.
They look sweet.
Seattle Seahawks running the Rams offense, guess what, looks sick.
Yeah.
4 touchdowns for Russ today. Dwayne Eskridge even got it on the act. He got a couple of carries. They did actually throw him the ball once, but it was more. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett combined for 160 yards receiving. Lockett had, there were like 4 incredible catches in the NFL today, and Lockett had one of them.
Yeah, it was sweet.
And they beat the Colts. Now, I was wrong on a couple of picks. I liked the Jets this week. I liked, who else did I like that was incorrect? Oh, the Patriots. But I also liked the Seahawks. And they looked, sometimes these games they can look weird in. They had their act together this week 1.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought they just felt very complete, tough. Some of the clips I saw, because it was coming back and forth on the red zone channel, like Jamal, they just feel very comfortable with their identity.
Yeah.
Like their identity is well established. Those 2 guys on the outside aren't terrifying. They're dominant. Like they're like Hill and Kelsey. You don't shut them out. They're probably one of them at least is going to score. Maybe both of them are. Can you just contain them? Like, I bet if you look back historically on how to beat Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Bill Walsh, Montana, most of the time you're not going to beat them like 17-3. Like, you're going to have to win some of the games, 28-24, but can you get key stops? I feel like at any moment when that guy throws the deep ball, those guys are going to catch it. And DK can have these moments, and he did a couple times a day, where it's more than just a vertical play. It's like he kind of looks like T.O. coming across the middle where he like snags the ball. A.J. Brown had a touchdown like that. When guys like that can run the variety of the route tree, how do you stop DK Metcalf and A.J. like with that size, right? It's just, you see it with Gronkowski, Mike Evans, sometimes with George Kittle, like Kelsey a lot of times. They're physically, like Lockett's, it's clear when you watch him how he dominates, right? He gets open because he hauls ass, but he's little. And he tracks the ball like Willie Mays. But DK and AJ, they like make these incredible plays when a guy kind of can even be close. But you're like, God, just fucking throw it a little higher. Those guys, they're a scary offense, man. That's big time what they got. Their passing game is elite.
I didn't get to watch that game. Like you said, we were kind of watching part of it. I do wonder, would they have scored more in that game if they had to?
Colts are good on defense. Like their personnel, they've been a top 5 defense the last couple years.
My point is Lockett and Metcalf are terrifying. At the end of the day, 28 points with those 2 guys, you go, okay, you got a chance to beat them if they're going to score 28 points, even with those 2. So my question is, could they have scored more? Because as scary as they are, if you're telling me they're putting up 28, then you can beat them. They can be beat. Now, Indy scored 16. So could Indy's offense not move? From what I'd read,
I'd say 28 on the road's pretty good.
It is
against a playoff team.
That's true. Yeah, it is.
If you're scoring 28 points a game, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, but when you look at Lockett and Metcalf, they look like guys that are just going to hang 38 on you, and there's not going to be anything you can do to stop it. And there's a big.
I feel like they do sometimes at home.
28, they do. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So maybe that's going to be a big part of the element, but getting home field if we're talking about the playoffs here. So you had that. Then you had the Cardinals. There were a few games today that were just, teams taking the other team's lunch. And Arizona, Tennessee was one of them. The Packers got their shit kicked in. As in flow as the Seahawks looked, the Packers looked out of flow. I don't know. Was Aaron pissed on the 4th and 2 that they ran from their own 22 because he thought there was a PI, or was he pissed because he hated the fact that they just went for it 4th and 2 on their own 22? in the third quarter, I think, of that game.
Yeah, but there was like 1 minute left. I mean, they were down 24-3. They were getting curb stomped. I mean, I didn't have a problem with them going for it right there.
I'm not making a judgment on the decision. I'm saying, why was Aaron pissed off?
Oh, it looked like because he thought they were holding Devontae a little
Okay.
bit, but also the tight end slipped. The play was a quick dump off. The guy slipped, so he had to the play got fucked from the jump. But it's hard, You just wonder, could that fester? On the Cardinals, I do think they are more equipped early. I sent you I didn't see the play live. I just saw it tweeted. Clearly, he made the play, and then the TV broadcast showed the behind the line of scrimmage view. And I had a guy DM me that said, I'm watching a game today, and every time they show that view, it's incredible. I can see way more. And you know this. I don't know the answer to this. Why don't they just naturally show that view more? Because you really can't see more of football like on the broadcast when we're just watching as a fan. Because like an NFL coach, they get that, right? But you don't get that as a fan. You get the side view, even though you can't really see that much. Like, why doesn't just NBC, Fox, or CBS just show that view more often? Like, that's how we consume.
You mean like on a replay or live?
I'm talking about live.
Yeah.
That's just what we've always done.
Yeah,
because you can see way more.
You can see way more of the play. In some ways, you can see way more. I guess one of the main things you're looking for is how far did a play go, first down yardage, that kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
Like
it's hard.
8 yards, it's a little harder to tell. It's harder to tell the path of the football too from behind. I'm with you. If I go to a game, I actually kind of prefer sitting there, depending on how high you sit. Basketball too. I'm not. I don't know. That's an interesting question. Would I prefer to watch a game like that on TV? I don't think I would.
It might not be as cool once you watch the whole thing, but it does put this individual play that he made, and he made a couple highlight plays today I saw, beside they dominated the game. His play speed is elite. Like his physical characteristics are, beside the height, his ability to throw on the run and just his speed are 10 out of 10s in the NFL. So when he's fresh, as he is week 1, because he doesn't play, right in the preseason at all. I guess he did a little against the Chiefs. I felt like they felt obligated to because Mahomes was, and he had told the broadcasters, I remember, it was Lewis. It was like the second week of the preseason. Like, I don't want to play the preseason. Like, Kyler, you're not too good to play the preseason, buddy. But he's clearly pretty fresh, and his speed it's eye-opening to watch. It really is. But he doesn't feel that way quite the same, at least the last couple years in November and December. Early on in the season, he looks like a lock Pro Bowler. And he did last year, and he did again today, right? Like, you watch him, you think Pro Bowl, right?
You think star. Yep.
You think star.
I think star.
Yeah.
And Tennessee's got that. I do think with some of the stuff that happened on Sunday, week 1 of the NFL season, is going to be wrong. Some of it's going to be wrong, right?
Well, I talked to this guy from the Action Network named Stuckey. Turns out he's like this 20-year gambler. He claims that week 2 historically is an incredible week to gamble. Like he's really deep into the weeds, the analytics, the numbers, and he's a big gambler.
Because of overreactions to week 1.
Overreaction to week 1. Like, for example, Seattle's playing Tennessee next week. So I would imagine a lot of people, the casual gambler, would be like, well, fucking Tennessee looked like shit. Seattle looked awesome. And that'll be a tie game going into like 3 minutes left in the game. That's always how it happens.
I tried to find some week 2 lines before the show today because I'm interested in what's going on with New England week 2, right, after they lost to Miami. I mean, it's several teams. Now, Jacksonville, we'll see. But I think there are a handful of the Packers. Without even looking at their schedule, I would bet they're going to be value week 2. But
whoever Arizona's playing, like, to me, Kyler's very, very scary in September. And if he's healthy, he'd be scary wherever. But early on, when he's just, how do you replicate that speed? Especially these guys that, like, let's say you're a starter for Tennessee, and you played a total of 15 snaps in the preseason, and then they have some random dude at practice, like, our Kyler Murray is our practice squatter who was a wide receiver / running back for Weber State, but hey guys, he runs a 4-3. So hey Billy, just run around like your Kyler, and the defenders are like, okay. It's like, that ain't the same. That's just right. That's just what they do. It's your only choice. What else how do you replicate that guy in practice? You have to typically take a wide receiver probably and throw him there.
And
At least
even
for
then,
some
if you're
players.
not trying to tackle them, it's not the same.
I know. So like they play Minnesota. That's just a tough game for Minnesota.
Well, Green
Like,
Bay plays Detroit. That one doesn't quite work either.
No. But I think Seattle, Tennessee is one that I think the tickets, people betting on Seattle will be high.
Yeah.
At Tennessee. That line, couldn't you see that line getting up to like 5 or 6? All of a sudden Tennessee's leading. Like that's the type game that Seattle.
Yeah.
They're
But
just
this will be the thing to
they're
watch
good
with
though.
them.
They are good. Like that's a tough. Like what do the Niners do against those guys? Who do they fucking have covering those guys?
When Seattle looks locked in, Seattle looks like one of the greatest teams you've ever seen. It happened early last year. Russell was going to break the NFL passing touchdown record, single season.
Yeah, when
With
they're
those
good, they can beat anybody.
You know, so the bottom line is this. Yeah, sometimes they play down, and yeah, Kyler wears down at the end of the season, I guess, so far in his career. And yeah, Cliff, we're not quite sure if he's a good coach. But when you're on the field playing them, and no one is there to help you, your coach isn't there to help you, your better coach isn't, I mean, he can help you a little bit. Can you contain Kyler? He's already been a problem for the 49ers. We know the Seahawks, we're watching Sunday Night Football. Like, guess what? It's gonna work. Matthew Stafford and the Rams.
Well, how about this? They remember a guy that got hurt for them last year, mid-season, at least probably week 8 to 10 range, was Chandler Jones. He had 5 sacks today. Now, is he going to have 85 sacks? I did 5 times 17, 85. Probably not. But if Chandler Jones is healthy the all season, could he have 25 sacks? Yeah. Like because you just get 5 and you're already that talented. Like he is a 15, 16 sack guy. So if you get one game where you get 5, you just have a couple other ones where you get double digits. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like he's
Not double
easily
digits, but
I meant double digit, like 2 sacks in a game. Like,
Yeah.
so if you have a couple 2-sack games, all of a sudden you're fucking at 10 before you know it by week 6. You're like, well, these last 11 games, you only need to get 9 sacks, and you're right there. He's a force, man. I remember Joe Staley talking about him a couple years ago. He's like, well, this guy is just, that's when they were bad. And he was one of the best players.
Bill traded
Like
him.
they do have a lot of talent. Their question is just coaching. Right?
I
And
think even-
Kyler, can he sustain?
I think even Isaiah Simmons, there was already been like, is he a bust talk? I mean, he led him in tackles and had a pick.
Yeah, I mean, he is like 6'4", this roving. I don't even know. He doesn't really have a position, but you feel his presence out there, especially now he's wearing the single digit. Like those two teams. Here's what I will say. So obviously, Seattle's done it for a long time, and we're watching the Rams do it, and Arizona did it. The high end, when these teams are on, and the Niners do just have to play them a total of 6 times, all 3 of those high end are like they could beat anyone in the league on any game by 15, 20 points, right?
Yeah, and you typically don't play down in divisional games. So the divisional games you're getting, I think we've seen it over several years in the NFC West now. You're just getting the best shot.
Well, it's why
The
so many
Cardinals have
think how
played
many.
up.
Well, they've played in a ton of good games, I feel like, against Seattle. So
Yeah.
and against the Niners too. Like they do play up. You're right. They play up. They are the most likely, I would say, to also play down.
It's just because their quarterback can make a bunch of plays, so it looks like they're playing up. It's just not. This guy is just he keeps you up at night. They just
Was the
all
number
three-
one-
just keeps you up at night,
Yeah. Was the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
and he's on their team.
Sometimes I don't think we quite even talk about it like this guy was the number 1 overall pick at 5'9". It's a pretty historic pick.
Well, right now there is a historic pick. Right now there's a
5'9" guy went number 1 to play quarterback in the NFL.
there's a clear number 4 at quarterback in terms of playmaking in the NFC West, and it's the Niners.
Yeah. But it was somewhat like that. I mean, obviously he was, playing better in Goff the year they went to the Super Bowl. But that year was Kyler's rookie year. And remember, he played him tough in 2019. And obviously Russell was much better in that good Jimmy season in 2019. Like Jimmy, when they've been good in the past, has never been, like viewed as like a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, but they drafted a new guy because they think that's what you need, which is true.
Yeah.
By the way, Keegan on the YouTube says, big Bears fan here, and watching this Sunday night game is the ultimate blue balls. It's 13-7. The Bears scored at the half. It's not done yet.
Dalton threw a pick early on. I saw that they were driving in the red zone, in the baby zone. They could have been. Rodgers threw a baby zone pick today too.
Yeah, Fields did appear, 1 of 1, 9 yards. He completed a pass. Other Week 1 things that happened, John, in the NFL. We mentioned the Packers. Ugh. Yes. How about Aaron Rodgers having a commercial where he's like playing an acoustic guitar? It was on mute. I didn't quite catch it.
I didn't see it.
But it's like the long hair and the look is part of the commercial where he's like just like some dude playing a guitar.
You think that's why he did it, or they built the commercial around his look?
No, I think they built it. He's had long hair before, remember, back in the day.
Yeah, he has.
I think he probably has always wanted to go back to the long hair.
Do you have the final score up in front of you right now?
Was it 38-3, yeah.
That's
38-3. Rodgers 15-28 for 133, no touchdowns, 2 picks. Jameis 14-20 for 148. Does not sound the line of a guy who's going to score 38 points, but 5 touchdowns and looked pretty good.
He looked pretty good.
I've been a doubter of this, but he looked good.
Well, I think that is a good example of a game. I think this guy gets in the NFL community, he gets put on this level, but the fans do not talk about him like this. The NFL views him as like Andy Reid as equals. But I think most people, if you just ask a fan, like Andy's the best offensive guy in the league. People, Sean Payton, they kind of poo-poo a little bit. Like, no, he's elite. Like he's going to be a factor, a major factor. Think about this guy, Michael Thomas. I don't know why I follow him on Twitter, but he was tweeting all game. Like I was home.
Huh.
He's got a fucked up leg.
But he misses
He was
it?
excited. Misses it?
Yeah, like he wants to be playing? There was some question.
Yeah, well, he was like rooting on his guys. Like, he was kind of talking some shit. Like he was getting fired up. But my point is, they did 38-3 with, hell, he might be their highest paid player at home tweeting.
He probably is, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would say he is.
D. Anthony says, check out the running stats in that game. Okay, let's check them out. I got them right here. Green Bay ran 15 times for 43 yards. And New Orleans ran 39 times for 177 yards. 43 yards.
Did you see the Saints? I think they have an undrafted free agent or a late round pick, a running back that they liked a lot during training camp. So they went to Latavius, right, going into week 1, and they said, listen, you're scheduled to make 3-3. We'll keep you on the roster, but you got to make, 1-9 or whatever. But you get to stay, and we'll keep you on the team, and you get to just play your role. He did the classic, pride, cut my ass. Like, okay.
Oh, I thought
they cut him,
but they did the thing where they gave him like 3 minutes to decide.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, they gave him I think he probably had to know. Like, part of his agent job would be to know going into the season, you're probably on. They have some cap deals.
It's not the thing to do. I understand. It's like you're just so pissed because they put you in a corner. They're like, oh, by the way, sorry, I know your contract becomes guaranteed in like 20 minutes. Forgot to ask. Are you willing to take a 50% pay reduction?
You
want the guy to say, no,
50.
I know, whatever the number is. I'm just saying when you do that to the guy, you want him to say, you asshole, cut me. That's what you want him to say.
But it is the wrong move to say that when you end up, he's not going to be on a team week 1. He wasn't, and his contract will not be guaranteed.
Yeah,
so it's
I'm not calling him a victim.
It's a good example of not letting emotions.
I understand, but you're pissed not just because they put you in that spot, but because you know that they're going to look you right in the eye and go, I dare, go ahead and back down and take the money, right?
Well, Latavius, the moment you say, no, I'm not going to take a pay cut to cut me, they've already texted the league office.
I'm not. You are right. I'm just saying what pisses you off is that they want you to say, I'm out, middle finger. Like, oh, okay. You got manipulated a little bit, and you lost, and there may not be a way to work that. What else? Jerry Jeudy. Somebody, Raider fan in the chat, said earlier, prayers up for Jerry Jeudy. I think it's good news. High ankle sprain, which is not good, but better than what looked like a season-ending injury for him.
Yeah, not ideal, but better than a shattered ankle.
Patrick on YouTube says Cam to Washington. Is Fitz done for the year? Do we know what the status of the hip injury?
No, they didn't know. The last I read, he has an MRI tomorrow that they're hoping for the best, but it could be season ender. Heineke had a moment in the wild card playoff game, even though most humans had never heard of the guy, including myself. And it was like, this guy's not terrible. It would be interesting, though. Let's say, worst case, I'm not rooting for it, but Fitz is out for the year. Do they bring in Cam? Because if they don't, then it's like, guys, Belichick doesn't want him and Ron Rivera doesn't want him. I'm sorry. Like, I'm out on the guy.
Yeah.
Not that I'm in on him now, but it's like there's nothing to be said anymore. Like, that tells you everything you need to know. Like, Ron would be somewhat desperate if Ryan Fitzpatrick is out for the season, right? That's
Jimmy.
Clearly, I mean, he beat him out. Heineke got beat out by Fitzpatrick. So, not in a good situation. In that division, well, I guess only Eagles won because they lost. The Giants lost. The Cowboys lost.
Yep. So they're in first place. Oh, no. Yeah, Phillies.
Eagles are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeezy says, any college football thoughts? Yeah. I got a few.
Go.
One thing, last week, UCLA won, and there's some people, if you follow the Pac-12, that were spent more time complaining about the Pac-12 North going 1-5 as if divisions matter. Like, Clemson has shown, have a great team or two, and that way, depth is overrated. Depth in leagues is overrated. Have a couple of great teams. That's what now, ideally, you have great teams and you're deep, and your great teams beat other really good teams. That's the ideal. But that's not the first step you need to take. The first step you need to take is have Oregon do what Oregon did, which was beat Ohio State, and not just beat them, but look like the better team, control the whole game, take several punches and respond and win. And UCLA against LSU, push them around too. And both times, both teams were more physical. So, I mean, that's far more important. Two teams have established themselves as the two best teams in the league. Surprise, surprise, it ain't SC again. And that's far more important than Washington just because somebody thought they were going to be good. They're not. They're clearly, they got some problems on offense if you've watched Washington.
Issues.
Oregon looks legit. And UCLA, they'll play Fresno State this week. They look pretty damn good. They both look legit, I think. I think it looks real on both of them. Now, it's incumbent on those two teams to beat all the teams they're supposed to beat. Because if they beat the teams in front of them, they do play each other, which could be sweet, then they're golden. Then it doesn't matter that their opponents aren't ranked or that somebody's 2 and 3 when they play them. It's irrelevant if they play the way they've each played the first 2 weeks. We spent a lot of time on the West Coast saying we need somebody to step up and win one of those games. Well, UCLA did it last week. Oregon did it over the weekend against Ohio State. And so we got it. So I don't care what – I mean, I care, but like Cal lost to Nevada or the league went X and X.
And TCU.
Yeah, sorry, I meant TCU. The league went X and X. Okay, well, you need a couple of great teams first and foremost.
Well, I think the SEC is a great example of that. This year, it looks like I don't know what Jimbo's quarterback status is, but clearly the backup is a little questionable.
Oh, my God.
So they clearly have some talent, but if the backup quarterback is that, they could be screwed. The SEC's got two teams who are dominant right now. Alabama's on a completely different level, and Georgia is elite. Other than that, like, I don't think Florida's as good. Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee sucks. A&M, like I just said, their quarterback position. Ole Miss, we'll see. Like, they're really a two-headed monster, and most years they're a 2 or 3-headed monster, and that's fine. But you need the ass kicker, right? Now, ideally, you'd want like Ohio State and then like 5 sweet teams, and your bottom feeders, no one even gives a shit. But I think the Pac-12 at this point will just take what would they do to get that Oregon-UCLA game, both teams undefeated, Oregon going down there to the Rose Bowl, 2 top 7-8 teams. What would they do?
I mean, anything. They're praying right now.
Yeah,
I'm praying.
That's
right
what you
now.
need. Yeah, we all are.
So,
and honestly, about that game, what would be so cool? It's not just the Pac-12. It would be like Chip Kelly, who helped create this thing into a behemoth. Now they're a behemoth again, but he's resurrected his career. Like, that would be pretty fucking cool. Like, that's a pretty sweet college storyline, right? I know Chip would poo-poo it and won't care,
and so would
but it's cool. Yeah, but
so
I understand Mario doing it. Like, Chip, like, I'm sorry, Oregon put your ass on the map. Like, no one, including the players at Oregon, knew who the hell you were until Bellotti hired you from New Hampshire. Like, that, Oregon did make that place. Like, even Mario, like, people in football knew about Mario Cristobal forever, right? The Miami, like, he's famous in the South, right? As an assistant coach. Like that to me, like what's cool, hopefully about this is like Chip is tied to Oregon. You know,
Right. But you don't need that.
That's
That's the
what's-
beauty. You don't need the coaches to participate in the hype machine. They just got to coach the
no,
football.
I
league.
know, but it's got a chance to be pretty special. But it's got to play out that way.
Right, right. And that's where like SC loses to Stanford. That's where losing games you shouldn't lose hurts is when when Stanford gets beaten badly by Kansas State and then turns around and looks like they always look against SC and kick their butt. And that's where the Kansas State game now really hurts you, right? So UW being bad twice really hurts you if they beat Oregon. But only if
Exactly.
but not if that's Oregon's only loss, it doesn't. Not if it's Oregon's only loss.
I do think though this year, Guy, I'm going to put Oregon in a different tier than UCLA because I don't think they were struggling yesterday against McNeese State. Like LSU just might be average, even though I'm not diminishing UCLA. Like I know Ohio State's good. Like we just know for a fact, like they're loaded with talent. They have elite players. They're a top 5 talented program in the country. And when the dust settles, worst case, they'll be like 10-2. You got to take care of business once you get that win, in my opinion.
Well,
Like
of
to
course,
really
what other
validate
opinion-
that
what
win.
other opinion is there?
No, I know.
You
but
got to take.
I think
it's.
But I think you could, if we just talked it out, like you could have a loss. I think that a loss to a shittier team, if Oregon's like a 20-point favorite, or what, would be a pretty big kick in the dick.
Yeah, but
If
it
you
won't
lose it-
matter
if
in
you-
the end if you win the Pac-12. If you win the championship, you end up in the playoff. Is my point.
You think so?
Yeah, especially if Ohio State's good, because you got a bad loss, but you had a very good win, right?
Actually looks pretty good though. Is Iowa? Like, what if Iowa just is good?
God, did you watch any of that game?
They were
did look
kicking
good.
the shit out of them.
I know, but it's painfully slow.
But it's
Iowa State. It's like, oh
they're,
yeah.
there's
There's
good.
the Big
Well, 'cause
Ten, and then there's Ohio State Big Ten. You know what I mean?
Well, both those two teams'
There's two
best
Big
player,
Tens.
their running backs are both NFL guys, so they hand it off nonstop.
You know what I'm saying? There's
They
two
just-
Big Tens, and Ohio State doesn't play old school Big Ten. They play
No.
Ohio State Big Ten football.
But most of the other teams, Michigan, Iowa, right, Wisconsin, play Big Ten
Big Ten,
football
yeah,
and do it
yeah,
well. Like I
yeah.
watched Michigan and went like, this works. They're gonna
Yeah, but
they're
it's got to
gonna
work
win
against
9
Ohio.
games.
Yeah, but it's
No, it won't work against
their
Ohio
standard's
State, but
different.
it's going to work against a lot of teams. Because the two guys that talked after the game were just the two running backs.
Oregon can sometimes play down, and so that's where UCLA. We'll see. I mean, we haven't seen UCLA in this spot under Chip, right? Chip historically at Oregon would he was supposed to kick your ass. He kicked your ass. I don't know that. We'll see. Oregon to do it without their two of their 3 best defensive players was. Their quarterback was actually better than his numbers too. Anthony Brown, I thought was really impressive.
But they did it. I mean, it looks different because they run a spread offense, but they dominated. How many yards did the kid have running the ball? 250?
160. No, but he had like 200 total. Good catching. He had almost 200. 195. CJ Friedel, I think, had total yardage.
That guy's pretty good. I was impressed.
Yeah,
Who wasn't?
I know. They looked good. The true freshman tight end has actually scored one of their touchdowns, which I didn't expect. But to beat down Kayvon Thibodeau and Justin Flo, they're 2 of their 3 best players on defense. The SC one. It's funny you brought up Chris Peterson as the next USC coach. I have, we've both anyone's been around college football has heard for years. SC once upon a time, Chris talked to Pat Hayden and they both agreed it wasn't quite a fit. It wasn't Chris's personality. He wasn't going to be a match for them. But I did watch him week one of the college football season, which was last week on TV, and I thought, I think he's coming back. I did think that. And I've not really thought that about him. I've kind of thought, you know what? He's enjoying it, but he's only 56. And he clearly, when you do I'm just living on the lake, but then you come back to TV, you clearly miss football a little bit.
Guy, I understood when that happened 5 or 6 years ago or whatever. I do believe you could convince him and he could convince himself. Like times
I do
have
too.
changed a little bit even since then. And I know you and I talked before we hit record, and all the SC fans know. Is it Mike Bone? Is that the guy's name? The USC AD?
Yeah.
I see it.
BOHN.
My Twitter timeline's always fucking pissed off him because he's always been Clay Helm. But Luke Fickell, it's an automatic move when you hire a new AD. What school is he coming from? And if his coach is sweet, well then, and the school's an upgrade, you're like, well, he'll just hire that guy. Listen, Luke Fickell's a Midwest guy. Look at his resume. That's where he thrived. Chris Peterson's a lifetime West Coast guy who just dominated this conference at a program that is much more difficult in modern times to win at than USC. And I think if you hold on to the Pete Carroll thing too long, let's just move on. Let's just try to get the best coach. We don't need Pete's rah-rah. Like, Chip is anti-rah-rah, who poo-poos everything, who is zero fun, and it's working right now at UCLA. Like, just hire a good coach who's proven and really was it the first play of the game yesterday that the kicker got tossed for for targeting for making the tackle? Which I think is stupid. But I also thought it kind of symbolized that I bet this kicker thought, one, he's probably clearly a pretty good athlete, but like maybe someone says, like, you go fucking get these guys fired up. Like, he thought he could make a play. Like, what the fuck are we doing? But in SC, everyone's so desperate to try to like kind of prove their hierarchy on the squad because they don't have one. And they just feel like lost without it. I went to bed at halftime. I'm like, this thing is over. They look terrible. And then when I looked at the score today, it got even worse in the second half until they kind of made a late score, huh? Like Stanford
dominated.
Their ass.
Stanford dominated them.
Was there at any moment in the second half where you thought USC could win this game?
No. Stanford looked fantastic, which again is historically is not abnormal. I disagree with you a little bit. I think Luke Fickell would be a phenomenal choice for them, except for one problem, which is he's an Ohio State guy, and so sometime maybe Ryan Day goes to the NFL, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Maybe it's not an issue. You'd be worried about him leaving potentially. Now, Cincinnati's moving on up in the world. He can make a ton of money. He doesn't have to leave. And if Luke Fickell made it known he wanted to go, he could take any job he wanted. He could be LSU's next coach if he wanted to be. I don't know if he wants to go there.
What Dan Hawkins said.
It's the Big 12.
Big 12,
it's not intramurals, brother.
Isn't that where they're going? Did they just get invited?
But I still think for all the issues, USC is still a unique job given its access to talent. The location is a big deal, and he has been incredibly successful. Like 12-4, 11-2, 11-3 the previous 2 years, and then 9-1 last year. I think he'd be a great choice. I would take Chris Peterson number one because I think what Pete Carroll did at SC is what great coaches do wherever they go. Whatever the personality of the program is, they impose their personality on the operation. And so all the stuff that people are trying to match with SC, like the Flash, it's not what defines Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll gets the best players to play like the best players. Back to Mike Tomlin's thing on Flying Coach a while back that we talked about. Coaches get too worked up on, I got my B-level talent to play like an A-level guy. No. Do you get your A-level guys to play like A-level guys all the time? That's what Pete Carroll's USC teams were. And we talk about sometimes Seattle is a little weird in terms of performance, but Seattle was the same deal. Like A-level players play like A-level guys. And so, that's really the thing that we thought Chris Peterson was going to jump to UW. He'd start getting A-level talent, and he did. He went to a playoff. So I don't care about what SC is supposed to be. The only thing that matters is that you win the games. And if you win the games, guess what? It'll be cool. There will be plenty of flash to go around if you're winning the football games, because it'll be cool. So you just pick the guy that's going to win you the football games. But I think in some ways it's almost him that has to be convinced more than maybe the AD would have to be convinced.
My theory and my philosophy, and I feel very strongly about this, I do think where you're from matters in college football. And you bring up the Ohio State thing, but I just think his ethos is the Midwest. And like you said, ultimately he has his trump card. If that job ever became open and they came after him, he's just going home. Now, every once in a while, once upon a time, Roy Williams turned down North Carolina. He ended up going, right? Remember, Les Miles should have taken this job, but turned down Michigan man. It happens. But where were those guys? One guy was at Kansas the first time he turned it down, right? Basketball. The other dude was at LSU football and competing for national championships, which you could do at USC. So who knows? But I do feel very comfortable. Historically on the West Coast, Jim Harbaugh went to Palo Alto High School. Pete Carroll, West Coast guy, went to Pacific, played football there, and got his football start out here, right? Chris Peterson, Boise, Washington, West Coast guy. Chip, somewhat of an outlier, but he inherited a program that was resurrected and created a consistent winner. Mike Bellotti, West Coast guy. Jeff Tedford, winner, right? The last couple decades, Fresno State and Cal. Winningest coach in Cal history, West Coast guy at his core. There is something to just, and no different than like when you hear all the SEC coaches talk. It's like, yeah, Jimbo, Kirby, they should be there. That's what kind of makes Lane unique. He kind of can go. I'm a strong believer in that. Now, Luke Fickell, I don't know him. I'm not saying he would fucking probably win. My trump card would be I'm leaning with the West Coast guy. Also, the one thing you know about him, the one thing you know about Peterson too is he now has on his resume, unlike Luke, where he has consistently coached in the Power 5 conference for years. Like his resume is, to me, he's on a separate platform than Luke. He did what Luke did at Cincinnati, at Boise. Yeah.
There's no question he's accomplished more. But to me, the reason to hire him is not because he's from the West Coast. It's
no. I'm just saying, like, that to me is his check mark that he has. If he would be
I think what happens a lot with guys who are from other places is that, A, if they don't understand the culture they're coming to, it's a problem. And then B, if they're not from the area, generally what happens is fans of a team want one of their guys. And so when you don't hire one of their guys, that guy doesn't get much rope. Now, if he wins right away, he could be one of their guys real fast. Mario Cristobal, unique because he was an assistant on Willie Taggart's staff. But Willie Taggart was not from out here. Well, Willie Taggart was from there, and that didn't work either. So, right,
I'll give you an example.
Florida State. He was from there, and that failed miserably.
Let's say Haberman and Middlecoff were from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and we were 35 years old. And in the early 2000s, this guy named Nick Saban was coaching at LSU, winning a natty, kicking our ass. Do you think, we were diehard Bama fans. We'd probably hate Nick Saban, right? We don't want to fuck that guy. And then 5 years later, he takes over the program. You're like, oh, now he's good.
See, I think it's more geography. I think like West Coast people don't like a coach that talks with a Southern accent, and Southern guys don't like guys that come from California because they're soft. And I think the Midwest, the Midwestern guy kind of works anywhere. Like no one's like, I don't want the Midwestern guy. Like that usually is fine.
Yeah, it's what Urban felt like.
Yeah, and I think Fickell probably just has some full perspective on everything. I think it's more South versus West Coast that tends to happen. Sonny Dykes comes to Cal. And Cal guy's like, oh no, this guy's not one of them. He doesn't belong here, right?
Our guy at Florida, they hated him.
Jim McElwain, yeah. Irony is he'd been in Alabama.
I know.
And he wasn't a West. Where did Mac grow up?
Montana, right?
It's not a West Coast. But I guess that's kind of feels more Midwest than anything else.
And I actually feel like he kind of talks.
He has a very West Coast vibe to him.
Yeah, sandals and shorts and stuff. Just a good. So it's about a guy. But if you said Jim McElwain, like where would he thrive? He thrived at Colorado State. Like if you told me he got the Washington or Washington State or Oregon State, I know, but don't you feel like he would really be a good Pac-12 coach? Like that's probably where he's most suited to be personality wise. I think he would do well.
I think he'd do well in the Big 12. Yeah. Look, it happens to align. I wouldn't hire somebody just because of that, but it just happens to be that this guy is an incredible candidate here's the thing we know about him. He's not interested probably. I don't know this, but he's not interested in just coaching anywhere. Like he values where he is. He went from Boise to UW. He was an Oregon guy, went to UC Davis. Like he's got the circle is not that big, right? He's a Pacific Northwest guy.
I think he'd make more sense at Cal. Now, how bad would Wilcox get fired? I do think he'd make a lot of sense of that university and that culture. Wilcox is his guy.
Kinda, but like he's been to the college football playoff. Are you capped at Cal based on just some of the requirements there?
I would have said most people would have pushed back to say that Washington could have made the football playoffs before he did it.
But they won a national. They won. It's no,
but 25 years ago. Yeah, I would say historically the program, but like they were not. Sark was getting I'm just NFL saying players.
But what I'm saying is at Washington they care a lot about football. At Cal, like there are some people who think sports are dumb.
100%. But Jeff Tedford, like his era, if the college football playoff would have been around, they would have been picked several years to be a sleeper to make the playoffs.
And I think he might be an outlier there.
Well, I know, but don't you think if Chris Peterson went to Cal, they would have success?
But I don't know if you can get the same players that Tedford used to at Cal.
Well, he wouldn't recruit them because they're not OKGs, right?
Well, yeah. I'm not saying there's not some level of fit there. There is, but
that's the same thing at SC. Like they want you to recruit Marshawn and Deshaun. Like is Peterson recruiting those guys? He kind of did at Washington, but there was a balance, right?
Took LeGarrette Blunt no, sorry, LeGarrette played against him. Never mind. Chip had LeGarrette. That was Chip's first year.
LeGarrette hit, or did his guy hit? I think LeGarrette hit his guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, hit Chris's
Hout. Oh, was his last name? But someone to beat Bryson Hout or something.
Who was the quality control guy when I was scouting, going through Mike Leach's his first year at Washington State? Houck was on his staff. Yeah.
Russell says LMAO week 1. Kyle should have taken Mac talk. We haven't even gotten to that. Oh, maybe that's a response. I think that was happening in the chat. Maybe. Yeah, Mac Jones. I thought he was going to win week 1. John.
Fields is in the game right now.
Like in the game, or just kind of.
Well, I don't know. First and 10, they put him in the shotgun.
Andy's coming back.
That was a bad throw.
I'm just looking up at the TV. Andy and his mustache coming out of his face mask.
You're ahead of me because I'm
streaming
it. Yeah.
All right. Big week ahead, everybody.
Long pod here, guy.
I know, big one. Time to eat, as they say. A lot coming up this week. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share the video. Share the stuff. We appreciate it. And I think it's probably not everything. We got to figure out what our lock of the week is going to be this week after a push.
Yeah. The Raiders.
Oh yeah, that's right. Monday Night Football. Can't wait for that.
They better, guy, really quick. Steelers look pretty good today. Kind of kicked shit out of the Bills. I mean, that's who the Raiders play next week. At Terrible Towels.
You think there's a chance the Raiders win Monday Night Football? I do.
I do. Yeah. Not gonna be easy.
Only one Monday night, but only one Monday night game this year.
But 7 broadcasts.
That's right. 9 people on the combined broadcast.
So what they lose in the multiple games, they continue on multiple broadcasts.
Yeah, that's right. So that's a good point.
I've only seen promos for the Peyton and Eli one, not for the other channel. It's rare that they push ESPN2 over ESPN, but I think that's the vibe I'm getting here.
Yeah, I've gotten that same vibe. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging.
Adios.